Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show today. Of course, this is Night Owls for what is this? March? What is this, Thundero?
March 6th.
March
6th. It's easy for me to say.
6th.
March 6th.
6th. All right. Great. I've lost track of time. But I've been jumping through time zones, so you have to. I was a bit surprised, Thundero, because I left the country to go do something, and then whilst I was gone, something happened right next to where the fuck I was.
Uh-oh, what happened?
War.
Oh, more of that old canard?
Yeah, but I was like, Jesus, I just got here.
Where'd you
Anyway.
go? Wait, I didn't know you were leaving the country. Where'd you go?
That is for discussion for another time, sir. Um,
Oh, uh-huh.
yeah,
I
but
knew it. See? He's a spy. We caught him. It
no,
all makes sense.
that's
It
not true.
all makes sense.
Don't you believe that? Don't you believe it? But nevertheless, we're going to get into some stuff today. Glad to have you guys here with us. So, how are you doing, dude? How's your week or so been?
Well, quite swell, in fact, Chester,
Hmm.
splendiferous.
That's nice.
It's been that swell.
That's
Yes.
it's splendiferous. Well, that's nice. Well, I actually had a good time. But yeah, a little bit crazy. Um, and whilst I was gone, I dropped my computer off at the nerd house, and they cleaned it up inside and out, and it was all kind of nice. So I got a nice, fresh, clean computer, which is good. But yeah, no, I did have some good food. And I had to do the various things I had to do, of course. But it was kind of interesting. A little thing popping out. Now, of course, I'm not really surprised because well, this has been coming for quite a while. But I didn't expect it at that specific moment.
Yeah. No, I didn't either. I didn't really expect it at all. I actually thought it was just a feint, but no, not not
Yeah,
quite.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I knew it was good. It would happen eventually. I just didn't know it was going to be that soon, especially with the White House prognosticating it. But
Yeah. Nobody
oh
takes
well,
Biden seriously.
yeah, well that's true. But it is a pretty hot situation. I mean, I'm going to get into it a little bit today here in a moment, but there's a lot of history behind this. This is not something out of nowhere. In this particular specific situation, of course, there's a lot of things we could talk about before since 1991, really. But basically, in 2014, President Barack Obama instigated and supported a coup d'état in Ukraine called the Maidan Revolution, and it caused a civil war, as it tends to.
No,
Yeah.
never. Couldn't be. Couldn't be.
And of course, the atrocities of that initial year of the Civil War were really, really bad. Particularly the people in the East who were not happy with the situation of a coup d'état, kind of tried to break away, and Ukrainian army went and just started blasting the hell out of them, of course. And then the people down in Odessa, which keep in mind that's more toward the south center, it's on the Black Sea, it's not actually in the east. They started protesting, and of course, Ukrainian government couldn't have that, so they came down and cracked down on them. And while police stood by and watched, so-called freedom fighters of Ukraine threw a whole bunch of Ukrainian people into buildings and burned them alive. It was wonderful. It was great. And of course, then they had the Minsk Accord. In 2015, and then for the past 7 years, Ukraine has ignored that accord completely, and so is the rest of the world. Would you like to guess, Thundera, how many Ukrainians have been killed by Ukrainians in the past 7 years? Would you like to guess?
I have no idea.
Oh, 14,000.
Damn.
That's a lot of people, dude. A lot of people. Of course, I've mentioned it here on this channel. I've made mention to the fact that no one gives a shit what's going on in Ukraine. I've said it several
No,
times, and
literally don't care.
here we are, right? And
Well,
now
that's one of the
everybody cares.
reasons.
Everybody
That's
cares
one
now.
of the reasons. The shady aspects in our government on both sides of the quote unquote aisle
Oh,
have been
absolutely.
using Ukraine as a place to launder their money because they know
That's
nobody
true.
gives a shit about what happens in Ukraine.
That's true.
Nobody pays attention to that part of the world. And except apparently Vladimir Putin. He has a vested interest in his neighboring state. Um, and he has apparently had enough to the point where I guess the prime minister of Israel, because Israel's political system's weird.
It
They
is.
have a prime minister and a president and like something else too. They have like basically all different three different names for a top executive. They have all of that, but I think the president is like the top one. But I don't know how it works. But
Well, the
anyway,
Knesset, yeah, they do have a mess up system. But that's all right. In 20 years or so, we're going to have an American running it anyway, because Ben Shapiro's on his way.
so
Yeah.
he went up there to try and be a mediator, right, for the talks, and Putin basically just told him to piss off. He's not interested. Um,
Hmm.
I honestly, I mean, I don't know in or out because there's so much propaganda,
Oh my God.
especially the last couple years about
Yeah.
Ukraine, and right now it's insane.
Yeah. Did you
So I
see the
genuinely,
title of the show today?
yes,
Yes.
I genuinely don't know who's right or who's wrong, but here's what I do know.
I know.
If I'm Vladimir Putin, I'm doing exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. That's the
I
problem.
can't fault him for wanting to secure his border, his
No.
frontier. I can't. I
Yeah.
can't. How can I fault him for that? How many times did America expand for that exact reason?
14
The
times.
exact reason.
14.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh,
How many times did they break? I know the number here. Break treaties they had made with the American Indians. Over
oh,
500.
yeah. No. Yeah. Well, let's be fair. White people don't keep the treaties very well.
No, we're not
We're,
fit.
we're
We
not
say
good
we're
with
going to
that.
do it.
We're not good with that.
Um,
But no, I mean, and keep in mind, this is coming from a dude that has been programmed since birth to hate Russia, right? I'm
yeah,
literally the duck and cover generation. Hi,
yeah,
but what are you going to do? You paint the dude into and a lot of things people don't understand about Putin. You think he's the West always portrays him as this ultra, dictator that has complete control of the country. That's
yeah.
not true, right?
No,
He has to
no.
answer to the Doma. Plus, he has to
Yes,
answer to whoever's above that, and we all know every country has that. Plus, he has to answer to the people. It's not like he's not an actual dictator, right?
correct.
Not
Russia is an
not in real.
oligarchy.
Yeah, it's different. And I'm sure for the past 8 years, the Russian authorities and the Russian people have been screaming at him.
Yep.
And of course, don't he's shrewd. She's got his own politics going on here too. We're not going to dismiss that. But you can't paint them into a corner like you have. Keep poking them
Correct.
over and over, and not expect
For
something like this to
decades,
happen. Decades, yes,
for
decades.
decades,
Yeah, and
NATO
lie
has
after
been
lie, lie after lie.
consistently pushing into the territory they agreed not to do so.
14 times.
Now, in fairness, so has he. He's been doing all kinds of stuff there too, and he does
Sure.
stuff here. It's everybody back and forth. That's why I say there's no good guy here. There's just simply not. There's no one here who I'm like, yep, that's the side I'm on.
Oh,
Because the only people I could say that about would be the Ukrainian citizens and the Russian citizens. Everybody else in positions of power is a shithead.
well, except
And they're
for
calling them
Zelensky,
shitheads.
he's a hero now.
Oh, yeah, he's a real hero. He's a literal Nazi, but he's a hero.
Yeah, which is weird because he's Jewish.
Yeah,
It's
he's
odd.
well.
But he's
Well,
not actually Jewish. Don't let them lie to you like that. He may have some of that heritage in him. But you can go find videos of him doing homosexual dances, literally.
yep.
Homosexual music video dances. Go check it out. It's pretty interesting. He's
He's
not a practicing Jew. He's not. Yeah.
the American government supported a neo-Nazi overthrow of Ukraine.
It's
The people that
strange
they
that
supported.
you know,
Yeah,
it is. I'm going to get into that a little bit today, and I might as well. It is interesting that Nazis come into the story here. It doesn't make sense, but I'm gonna like, well, let's just do it. Screw it. Let's just get into it, because it's weird, dude. When you hear stuff like that, you're like, huh?
right.
But
Like,
it's
wait a minute,
actually
what?
true. It's oddly and very weirdly
Especially
true.
living in these times where you have one side of the political aisle who calls everybody who disagrees with them basically a Nazi,
Yeah,
and
no,
then you have
exactly.
the other side of the political aisle who consistently calls people like Dr. Fauci a Nazi. All of which are completely ridiculous, right? Like
Right. No, that's
Fauci
true.
is, I would say, yeah, he's a prick, but I don't. He's not a Nazi. He's not a national socialist. But these guys in Ukraine are. They fly swastikas.
No,
They
no,
freaking
no.
do. They seek hell. Like
Fau-
they're
That's right.
they're in.
They're
They're
in.
100%
Oh,
in.
Fauci is a prick. I do believe that's the
Yeah,
word. Yes,
yeah,
yes, he's a
yeah.
prick. He's a
Who murders dogs?
egotistical. Yeah, he's a prick. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a different word, just slightly different. Spelling's close. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, let me get into this today. Now, you guys know I like to start out with board games today, and of course, I had to pick something appropriate. Here's a board game called Diplomacy.
I like
Um,
that.
mm, and of course, there's no such thing as diplomacy, really. But this is a very, very, very old game, actually. It's insanely boring, takes forever. If you're not smart, don't even bother. I mean, really, don't even
Yeah,
bother. This is for very smart people, and it's boring as hell. And a favorite of Winston Churchill. Did you know that?
interesting.
Yeah, he did. He loved
Yeah,
this game.
diplomacy is just war without violence, typically.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's it. I mean, all of our international interactions. This is the a lot of Westerners are in this weird malaise where they think that there's anything other than war. It's always war,
Yeah, it's true.
always.
It's true.
Whether
This is
it's
a
economic or word, through reputation or whatever, like diplomacy is, or words,
yeah,
it's still war.
yeah,
It's cold or it's hot, but it's still war.
yeah. And this is a real board game, by the way. I'm not joking. I know I'm being facetious in my tone, but it's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't play it because it takes forever and it is insanely boring unless you're that type of person. Well, I've actually enjoyed a couple of games of diplomacy, but even for me, it's a bit dry, dude. But of course, I'm being facetious,
No, Chester,
sarcastic. Yes.
you had nothing to do with this, but it's a interesting happenstance.
Uh-huh.
My wife has randomly decided that she wants to play board games now,
Good.
and there's right around the corner from us. Well, a little further than right around the corner, but pretty close. There's an actual hobby shop, gaming
Oh,
shop, and all that stuff. And they have, it's two. It used to be two shops. They apparently leased out or bought both things in the little thing.
mhm.
And so they have one side has board games and Warhammer figurines and all these things. And the other side just has like tables and stuff where they do like magic tournaments or whatever.
Oh yeah, sure.
Um, so it's just a straight up hobby shop with a bunch of board games in there. And we just went in there the other day. It was pretty cool. They had a
It is
whole bunch of stuff. The problem is,
welcome to nerddom, sir.
that's one problem. It's stunk in there. And two,
Yeah,
um, there's so much. It's like, where the hell do you start?
that's true, James. Well, no, no. I mean, and you are speaking to an aficionado, so if you have any questions, I can certainly help you. I have a
Here's what
broad
she's
knowledge
gonna
of board
want,
games.
especially to get started. She's gonna want a very simple game,
Yeah.
something real easy to pick up and just play with, like me and her and my cousin.
Uh-huh.
Nothing that's gonna take 3 hours or has 75 different rules for every action, like stuff like
Right.
that. Something
Splendor.
straightforward. Yeah,
My suggestion
yeah.
is Splendor. Yeah. It's a simple game, easy to pick up. It's fun, it's tactile, and it's not so long. There's also got Majesty, made by the same guy. There's tons of them, dude. Board games are fun, and I agree. Sketchbook. Fauci, of course, is a globalist. I was just trying to be funny. Sketchbook. Jesus, damn. But anyway, diplomacy. Don't play it. Yeah, don't do that. Okay. But
I
of
agree in the
course.
real world too. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's true. But let's move on here. Now, of course, we're talking about the mighty Russia, the mighty Russian bear, coming in and going to stomp the world to death. But
I will say this: when it comes to their animal and their national anthem, Russia has America beat all over. I like the bald eagle, don't get me wrong, but compared to a bear,
no, the bear's badass. I am the
yeah,
bugbear. I appreciate it. I do.
I love
But
bears. Bears are so cool. I wish they would be tameable because I would have one.
Well, the
They're
Russians
so
seem
cool.
to have done that because there are a lot of videos of Russian soldiers with bears. My favorite one recently is there's this one Russian soldier hanging off a branch and he's doing leg pull ups and he's lifting him over a soldier who's in front of him, both bare chested, of course, while he punches the other soldiers, punching him in the gut. He's just showing his strength. And the whole time in the back, there's clearly they have a trained bear with them. And the bear, as with pets want to do, they want to help. They want to get involved. So he's pushing on the branch. He's pushing on it. He's pushing on. He's helping. That's an awesome video, by the way. Go check it out. But yeah, they like their bears. And of course, speaking of the Russian bears, the man himself, Mr.
Yes. Yeah,
Putin.
that's right.
Yeah, that's right there. Don't you mess
So
with him.
Russian propaganda is the best in the world.
It
I
is.
don't care what
It
anybody
is
says.
awesome.
It's so ridiculous and over the top, and it's obviously propaganda, but hey, why not?
Well, you know what's funny, especially during this situation because of the absolute hysterical hypocrisy that's going on in the West right now. It's very hard to find actual news. I've been able to dig it out and find stuff. And it's because I have the ability to go to foreign countries and listen to their news, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a very handy thing. And, and of course, I've been doing that and being able to kind of find out, through Telegram and various other things, get some actual, what's happening on the ground, right? And the funniest ones, though, you mentioned the best memeology coming out of Russia, and they are cool. It's funny. It's fun.
Yeah.
But India, though. India is freaking out of their mind. When you go watch Indian news, imagine you take a bunch of hood rats, right, with the gold teeth and the bling bling and the gun in each hand, and put them in charge of the evening news. I shit you not.
Um.
It's
Oh
exactly
no.
that, dude. It's exactly that. This is the best gold coverage you could find here. This is the best. We are on the ground live. Bullets are flying. This is the best channel. You watch us. Gold standard. Yes, it's awesome. I get a kick out of it. But that's true. That's true, Captain Canada. Trudeau does dress up. Biden eats ice cream, and Putin rides bears. Yeah, it's a balance to it. But even though they are doing their best to demonize Putin, and they always do. And I'm not saying he is not a cold-blooded, calculated monster, because he is.
He
Uh,
is.
but cold-blooded, calculated, guys.
He's a
He's
predator.
he is a
Look at those
predator.
eyes.
Yeah.
That's a man who's killed people with his bare hands.
And the thing is, they keep wanting to say, I've noticed that Putin recently, it just isn't right. There's something wrong with him. Have you
Uh
noticed this
huh.
shit? It's like, dude, he knows
But
exactly.
Biden's got all of his faculties, right?
How long you think he's been planning that, dude?
Oh, at least 10 years. Minimum.
Minimum. Because, I mean, keep in mind, the Orange Revolution happened in 2004. And it was
Yes.
very clear what was going on at the time. And then, of course, the Maidan Revolution here, which was just literally an American CIA coup d'etat, literally, in 2014. So, at minimum, he's been working on it since then. So don't listen to that nonsense. They know exactly what they're doing, and good or bad. Because let's be honest, people are dying, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
the Russians are trying their best not to do what we usually do, because America, we just go blow the shit out of everything, right? We destroy it. We
Yeah.
just scorched earth. That's what we do. But we also have the money to go back and rebuild everything, right?
Well,
Well, I'm just saying,
we have the debt capacity to go back and
we
rebuild
do,
it.
we do, and of course the Russians don't necessarily have that, but they're also
Yes.
fighting their. It's a kind of brother war, right? So,
Yeah.
the Russians are trying to be soft-handed, but in most places, but nevertheless, people are still dying. It is an invasion. There is no way around that. But there are some interesting aspects I want to get into. This little fella right here. This is Ramzan Kadyrov. He is the the leader for life of Chechnya,
Yep.
and I want to get into the conversation here a little bit as we stare into the eyes of this fucking maniac. Because keep in mind,
And
uh,
that you anybody who wants to know what evil looks like, you're
yes,
looking at it.
this guy is a
Look at those
bad
eyes.
human being. Now, keep
Yeah.
in mind that 50,000 of his troops are in Ukraine right now. Keep in
Yeah.
mind that this psycho bastard is with them. Keep in mind his 9-year-old son is with him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
okay.
only thing stopping him from full on in the streets genocide is Putin.
Hmm.
That's it.
But
That's
you
it.
know how scared the Russians are? Because Chechnya is technically part of Russia, right? You know how
Yes.
scared they are of these fucking bastards? They basically say, okay, you can have your own kingdom down there. We won't look at anything.
That's right.
That's the reality of Chechnya. And he is beloved by his people because he murders the right people. Putin has tagged these fuckers in. Now, why would Putin go to that extreme if he's trying not to destroy all the infrastructure? Clearly, he's not. He's taking nuclear power plants because Ukrainians are blowing shit up as they retreat. Keep this in mind. I know they're trying to make you think he's starting to create some kind of nuclear incident. He's not. It's quite the opposite. They're trying to keep those things from happening. You don't take my word for this. You guys research this shit yourself, right? But the Russians are trying not to literally just level Ukraine. But he
Yeah.
brought these guys in. And I'm going to get into why I think he did. I'm going to give you my opinion on it, my speculation. But before I do, how many armies do you think are working in Ukraine right now?
Officially, or Black Book.
Black Book.
Uh,
Black Book.
oh God, I probably at least a dozen from
Yeah,
different
I'd
countries all
imagine.
over the world. I guarantee you, China's in there.
Oh yeah.
I guarantee you, the Indians might even be in there.
Hmm.
Like, there's a lot of vested interest in Ukraine, for many reasons. One of the main ones, though, is all the corruption. It has been for years, and everybody knows this. At high levels of business and stuff, everybody knows it. You send people to Ukraine, wash your money up, send it back, and it's all good. That's what Ukraine has been
It
for,
has
I
been
don't know,
for
two
quite a while.
decades at least.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
And
everybody knows that, and everybody's got a vested interest all over the world. So yeah, oh yeah, all
yeah.
sorts of all
And
sorts of different peoples are in there right now.
sure. And to be fair, as long as they were peaceful toward Russia, the Russians were doing the same thing, right?
Yep,
I would say there's at least seven, right? Let's count it, right? We have the official Ukrainian army. We have
yep,
their National Guard battalion. They call them they pay for this. And keep in mind, Americans arm these fuckers. The Azov
yep.
battalion, which I'll get to in a minute. So that's two. We have frickin' Russia in there, of course. We have Chechens, right? We have Belarusians or Belarusians, right? We also have some other things going on in there. There's a lot of rumors that Serbia has soldiers in there, right?
I wouldn't
But
doubt it.
let's leave that out because we don't know. What we do know is there are some soldiers fighting in there that people seem to not to pay attention. Like for instance, there's this little country called Georgia, it's not a unified country, even though it's applying for NATO membership, because they have two separatist areas in their country, just like the Donbass and Lugansk in Ukraine, and South Ossetia is actually sent soldiers. They're actually Georgian soldiers fighting on the Russian side. And then let's not take into account, let's not forget the fact that Moldova, which they keep wanting to talk about, you ever wonder why? Well, I'll give you why. Because the entire eastern side of Moldova is actually not Moldova. It's once again a contested area. They call themselves Transnistria, right? And if you're wondering why the Ukrainians are blowing up all the bridges and all the connecting roads into Moldova, it's because they're terrified that the Transnistrians are going to blast them from the frickin' west, right? And
Yeah.
once the Russians connect up through Odessa into the border of Moldova, I guarantee they will be, right? So there's a lot of shit going on. This is not simple at all. This is complicated as hell, dude. And here's the thing, because I am curious, why would Putin tag this dude? Because it's clear that Putin doesn't want to lay waste to Ukraine. I
Right.
mean, shit, man. The power is still on in Ukraine. The
Yeah.
trains are still
Internet.
moving, buses, internet. We America would never do that. And when you listen to the Western media, they're so besides themselves because all they do is see what America does, and they keep saying Russia's failing. Russia is kicking the shit out of
Yeah.
Ukraine, dude. And
It's not even really a fight. I mean, it's
no,
it's it's barely
it's
a skirmish.
it's scalpel like, dude.
Yeah.
It's there, but they're so used to America just laying waste to everything that they, from their point of view, like, oh, they must be failing. No, dude, this is
When
freaking
the talking
surgical, dude.
heads on television are telling you they must be failing, right?
Hmm.
Meaning they're not declaring that they are. right? They're not with evidence and facts and logic. They're not presenting to you a case. They're telling you what they want you to feel because they're scared. And everybody
Yep.
should be scared because the professionalism that Russia is displaying is way, way leagues ahead of what the
Yeah, it's
American military has
shocking, dude.
done
It's
in the last
shocking.
20 years.
I didn't expect it to be like that,
Me neither.
honestly. Yeah.
I think everybody's a little bit stunned by it. They just
Yeah.
don't want to admit it.
Yeah. And I'll get into that a little bit, but I want to this guy we've been looking at here for a minute. I mean, we are not over we're not being hyperbolic here, guys. This is an insane fucking pirate king.
Evil,
It's exactly
pure
what he
evil.
is. He's a pirate
Yep.
king, dude. And
Yes.
Chechens are nightmare. It's some of the most devastatingly brutal and vicious urban fighters on earth,
Yeah.
right?
They wipe out population centers for breakfast. It's
Yeah,
nothing to them.
it's insane, dude. And
Yeah.
why would Putin, who's clearly trying to be surgical here, drop these maniacs in on it? Well, I think this is the reason. These guys.
Yeah.
This is just there's you can find tons of pictures. This is the Azov Battalion. Now, the Azov Battalion is they're their national guard of Ukraine, and the reason why they make them the national guard is so they can get away with their shit. Keep in mind that in 2014 we had the coup d'état, which turned into a civil war. A year later was the Minsk Accords, right? And then for the next 7 years after, Ukraine has completely ignored those accords, been attacking, the Donbass and Lugansk, and they've been fighting back and forth. The civilians in the middle have been just getting torn apart. It's ridiculous. No one gives a shit, right? Well, they don't want to put their Ukrainian army up against it directly because I guess from their point of view it looks bad. So they send the National Guard in. The problem is the Azov National Guard are actual Nazis,
Yes.
and how is that? Well, keep in mind that these are not all Ukrainians. They
Correct.
recruit neo Nazis from all over the world. There are Germans in there, there are Swiss in there, various other Scandinavians. There are English, there are Americans in there. There are neo Nazis from all over the world. The call has gone out to come enjoy the Azov Battalion, and you can murder people. Right? That's what they are. This is not a purely Ukrainian thing. They are this mixed mash of their whole focus is neo-Nazism, as you can see. Matter of fact, a lot of them wear into battle old grandpa or great grandpa's Nazi uniforms. Now, how in the
Yep.
hell the fucking Nazis have anything to do with Ukraine and Russia? Well, I'll explain it.
It's so
It
weird.
is so
The
weird.
whole thing is
Well,
so. It's like a movie script, like a
it is,
bad
dude.
movie
It
script.
is. But I'm not going to give you a complete, dissertation on the history of Ukraine. But I'll give you a couple little pieces quickly to try to get you up to speed. What's happened here in Ukraine? For a very long time. Now, keep in mind, if you're an Aryan person, which
Yep.
Thunder and I are, and all the other who whites, right?
Who
Aryans.
white?
I understand we're not supposed to use that word anymore. Which fuck you, right? All right. Anyway, but technically, the DNA is showing that we all come from North America, actually, which is
Yeah.
weird. I mean, it's unexpected, but DNA is, telling the truth. It's pretty useful in anthropology. But nevertheless, but after the big old trouble that wiped everything out, we basically ended up in the Black Sea area. And from there, the Aryans spread out all over the place. So keep in mind that the kind of de facto homeland of the Aryans is freaking Crimea, dude. Right?
Interesting.
It's important to keep that in mind, right?
So
And then
wait. You're telling me that in this which one is it? Star Trek Five, I think it is,
uh,
where Chekhov says that the Garden of Eden was just outside Moscow. He wasn't. Maybe he wasn't lying.
no, he probably wasn't. Yeah, he probably wasn't. Yeah. There's an important point here. I want to keep in mind, because who are the Crimeans? Who are the Chechens? Right? Who are these people of southern Ukraine and all the way down into Georgia and Chechnya and Azerbaijan and all that kind of stuff? Well, of course they're the Tartarians, or maybe most people might know it better as the Cossacks. Right?
Yeah.
But what happened here? Well, as the various groups started moving out into all the other areas, and of course we had Mesopotamian things take place, the Europe stuff took place, which was actually later. It was one of the last places the Aryans went into, oddly enough. Egypt, of course, all in North India, all the places, all the way over to the Altai Mountains, which is modern day Mongolia, all the places the Aryans spread out to and interacted with, right? The people who where they were originally there in the Crimean Black Sea region, they stayed. But the whole damn time, they're literally running around on horses, living in tents
Yep.
for thousands of freaking years. When did this
Like it.
change? Well, this changed in 1652, sir. That's not long ago. That's how long they were riding around on goddamn horses and tents. But here's an interesting point. What was going on is the Swedes, now today our countries are different and everything looks
It's a
different, right?
mess. Yeah.
It's a mess. But Sweden really controlled most of Scandinavia and Northern
Yes.
Europe. They were extremely powerful.
Wasn't
Uh,
it, wasn't it a Swedish family that founded effectively Russia? Weren't they from Sweden?
yeah, well, that's what I'm getting into. You're getting ahead of me,
Oh,
dude. What are
okay.
you doing? All right.
Sorry.
Um, well, anyway, so what did they do? What they were really interested in trade and making money and stuff like that. They certainly raided all across Europe into the Britons, of course. But what they would do is a lot of people have this misconception that the Scandinavians would go all the way around the Horn of Europe, past Portugal and down in through the Mediterranean. I don't know why people think this, but it's kind of nonsense. Actually, what the Scandinavians did is they came down through the Dnieper River into the Black
Yes.
Sea, and then they went to Constantinople and traded because that was their main place they traded, sell slaves, sell whatever goods, right? And they were doing this for a long fucking time, and they had no trouble with the people on the plains. Because they were just using the river, and the plains people are horsemen. They give a shit about the river other than watering their horses. So their
Right.
relationship was pretty good. They had no problem whatsoever with them, right? And this was going on for a very, very long time. And what happened was Poland and Lithuania were quite enormous and powerful countries back in the day. I know it's shocking, but it's the reality. But they were getting a lot of pressure from Prussia and Austria, particularly the Habsburg Austrians. And they were pushing really hard. So they were kind of starting to lean more and more to the east for lands and resources and stuff to fight their Western war. Well, these Vikings that are traveling up and down this river for trade really give a shit. Along the way, they had built a midway, literally midway. Go look at a map. They built a midway port in a kind of a thicker area of the river because they got to the point where you had a lot would bring supplies down to this port, and then they would take others would take it from the port down to Constantinople, and they kind of built this system. Now, of course, they named this port Kiev, which is basically means the club or the hammer, right? And but more than likely, anthropologically, we kind of consider it meant the wooden palisade that was surrounding it, more than likely, right? But that's what Kiev means. And of course, as this more and more pressure came in from the Poles and the Lithuanians, they decided that, oh well, we better kind of reinforce this. So they actually founded a city state, a kingdom there, and they called it Kievan Rus, red,
Yeah.
the red
Yeah.
gate, basically, right? And things went on. Okay, fine. Now they can protect it. They can negotiate and stuff like that. But the pressures in the West became such that Lithuania and Poland joined together into a single country, right?
That's right.
Okay. So then they started pressuring the Kievan Rus a lot more. So what did they do? Well, they shut down the city. Basically, they lost the city, and they escaped to the east. Now, here's an interesting thing. There were many little city states at that time over in that region. There was no unified country at that time. But there was one that had becoming very wealthy and very successful. And it was a city state called Muscovy, right? And they all went over there and met together. And they're like, what are we going to do? Well, let's form a country and push back. So they did. And they named it Russia, the land of the red land, right? So Russia literally was founded by fricking Kiev. This is important.
Damn Vikings! They start all the trouble.
I'm just
All the
saying,
trouble.
this is a little important, don't you think? A
Yes.
little bit important. Because we're hearing literally the news say the opposite. It's
Of
not
course.
the
Yeah.
opposite, right?
If it's
Um,
coming out of the news in the West, it's just assume it's the opposite. Just
mhm.
start there and work your way back to the
So
truth.
how did this new alliance, this new Russia, alliance of city-states, how did they push back and eventually get their lands back? Well, they noticed as they're cowering behind their own walls that they had built over there in Muscovy, that the Poland Lithuania armies were trying to kind of take the area, and they'd go down into the southern part of what we call Ukraine today, and they'd run into these frickin' horsemen in their goddamn tents and get the absolute shit kicked out of them.
Yeah.
And the Polish Lithuanians were terrified of these monsters. And all they were doing is riding around on their horses, fucking their wives, and living in their tents. That's all. That's it.
Drinking horse milk.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And these Muscovites, they were like, hey, maybe we should ally with them. We've been talking to them for years. We get along. So they went down in 1652, and then, of course, officially in 1654, chatting with these fellas, and they're like, yeah, sure, we will join you. We will kill the bastards for you. So together they joined, and they were part of Russia, and they went and kicked the absolute shit and pushed of the Polish Lithuanians and pushed them back. Now, don't misunderstand it. These original rulers, these Scandinavian princes, they broke promises, broke treaties, mistreated, and when you hear a lot of Ukrainians say that they've been under oppression for 300 years, they're not 100% wrong, right?
Yeah.
Although it's more nuanced than that. But this is what brings us to the modern day, and in all the kind of little politicking and all the nonsense that was going on, all the little nonsense from Kaiser Wilhelm and his and King George and their other cousin there, Tsar Nicholas. Those are all cousins. They were actually raised together by Queen Victoria, by the way, just so you know. They literally, in their childhood, grew up together, right? But whatever. All that nonsense was going on. Of course, eventually Vladimir sent Lenin in with 10 million in gold on a train into Russia to get the Russians out of the war, and they successfully did so. But all that nonsense was going on created a lot of trouble in Ukraine, obviously, right? And so you had a lot of heated attitudes, a lot of bad attitudes that had built up, and by the time World War II came along with old Mr. Adolf, right? By that time, Ukraine had three separate ideologies going on, right? And this is radically important to our point when we're talking about the Azov battalion here. Uh, One, traditionalists, right? We are the Cossack people, all of that kind of traditional stuff. But even though they were very traditional, they still had kind of a happy relationship with their Russian brothers, right? The second ideological group in Ukraine were the Russians, because there were a lot of Russians living in there. I mean, they are all fucking Russians, right?
It
And then
really isn't a thing.
it isn't a
It's got a
thing.
selection of
It's
things.
so stupid. But the third one, and the real problem one, coming to our modern problem here, was a group behind, I think his name was Petrotov or Petriov or some freaking
Some
Cyrillic name.
nonsense.
Um,
Yeah.
well, he was very, very, very pro-Prussian. He rather loved the Germans, and he was very happy when the Russians came in. They were very helpful. Matter of fact, even before the war started, they were already part of the German army. Yes, I did. That's the facts, guys. Because keep in mind, there were plenty of activities going on in various what we call Baltic areas by the Germans before any of the war kicked off. Right. But like I said, I'm not going to get into all the details. But however, this Ukrainian group, which is in the west part of Ukraine, they were happy to be part of the SS. They wore their Nazi uniforms with pride. And when the Germans finally arrived in Ukraine, they were happy to point out who all the Russians were and all the Jews. And keep in mind, some of the greatest massacre of Jews during the war happened in Ukraine.
That's right.
Okay. There's a reason why all the Zionists want the entirety of Russia murdered, guys. Keep this in mind. The Russians don't like the Jubases. They've been killing them for quite a
The weird
while.
thing is Putin seems to. He seems fine with them. Doesn't seem to have
Well,
any real problem.
modern times, why would you give a shit? But I'm saying historically. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: the Zionists will never forget it. They'll never forget it, dude. They
Doesn't
want
seem
all
like it.
Russians dead. This is an important political point. Keep that in mind. Okay. But anyway, so you literally had freaking Nazis in Ukraine. Literally.
Yeah.
And here we are, 80 years later, and they're still ensconced in the West. They're still there. I'm not kidding. These guys wear grandpa's freaking Nazi jackets into battle.
Yeah.
This is what's going on in Ukraine. It is muddy and it is ugly, dude.
That's right.
And
And the reality is, for 99% of Americans, especially, it's none of our damn business.
yeah, that's fair. To
We
be fair,
really have the individual citizens of America,
there
have
is
no
no
dog in
us.
this fight.
No, unless you're an
Yeah.
American Nazi who's joined the Azov battalion.
Yes, unless you're gonna go sign up and fight on one side,
Well,
other side of the war,
look how
this
many
isn't
of
our
these
fight.
look how many of these idiot Twitters like wearing their little pink leotards saying, "I'm gonna go fight for Ukraine," and I'm like,
Go
"Thank
on,
God, thank
go
you,
on.
Lord, you
No
answered
one's
my
stopping you.
prayers." But of course, it's not funny. People are freaking dying. It is absolute tragedy. But people have been. I just told you, 14,000 people dead in the past 7 years, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, it's no joke.
that we know
It's a
about,
serious
right?
problem that we know about, right? And
Who
these
knows how
guys,
many thousands have been erased?
that's
They're
true.
just gone now.
Yeah. So it's an ugly situation. The hysterical hypocrisy is real.
Oh, for
But
crying out loud! In the first month of the Iraq invasion, we killed more people. Like, let's calm down. Let's
well,
calm
I
down.
mean,
We destroyed
eh,
more stuff, killed more people, and that was just one country we invaded and blew up in the last 20 years. There's
well,
7 others.
oh, there's money more than that, really, as far as
Well,
our
right,
political
officially,
leaning.
there's 7 others.
Yugoslavia was probably the most devastating, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And of course, we started that shit. We didn't start it, but we got it. We chose a side, and that's the thing. America does this all the time. Now, maybe you agree with it. Maybe you think America's helping. We're taking a good side, and from the American people's point of view, this might be true. And our leadership tends to try to take something that the American people will be positive with. Keep in mind that the American government just looking for oil or resources or political power. They don't give a shit. But they have to sell it to the American people, so they tend to take a side they think America will agree with. But we do this shit all the time, and we do it usually for resources. Putin is doing this probably because he's pressured into it, and he's been planning and trying to figure out how to do it. But this is not. There's no resource to gain here, really. I suppose there's a little bit. There's a little more oil, but Russia's got a lot of that. There's a little more wheat, but Russia's got a lot of that. So it's not the same, but I'm sure there are some gain here for Russia. But
Well, I've seen, and again, all the propaganda out there, there's no way to know what's true. But I've seen many people point to articles and things from, the past. You know, the thing that everybody likes to forget, the last 5 years? Um, I've seen articles like come out talking about how the United States government has a bunch of chemical bioweapons research, quote unquote, labs all over Ukraine. I think the last time I saw was like 14
right.
in both sides, both the east and the west of
Well,
Ukraine.
to be
And
fair,
I could very clearly believe that Putin knew that. And he's like, no, you're not doing that right here on my damn doorstep. Are you
well,
crazy?
Well, maybe, and also the Ukrainians were really pushing get NATO, and NATO was kind of making noises. Of course, it's bullshit, but they were making noises that maybe, and they were also talking about putting nuclear weapons in Ukraine. I mean, it just was way too much for the Russians to stand any more of it.
Yeah.
To be fair, that as far as what triggered it, but do keep in mind, Barack Obama was an absolute freaking ridiculously bad president. He did
Yes.
so much bullshit. He created this situation. He or
Yep.
extenuated it anyway. But he did. There were a couple little things that came out. Well, they didn't turn out positive, but I think his initial idea was positive. Because Barack Obama is the one that said, "Hey, we're not going to have any more biological testing on American soil. Yeah, we're done with that." So Obama forced them overseas. And of course,
Yes.
a lot of people said that, well, a lot of it ended up in Ukraine because Ukraine's a dumping area. It's a political black hole, right?
That's right.
But of course, it also pushed it into China and the Wuhan fucking laboratory,
That's right.
right? So Obama pushed it out of America, and it ended up, as long as it's out of his sight, it's fine, I guess. Because keep in mind, there was still American funding of Wuhan, right? We're
Yeah.
not blameless in this.
Well,
But
because like I've seen a lot of people say that a big part of it is that there was those labs all over Ukraine. Obviously, there's the NATO concerns with Putin. There is a lot of Russians who live in Ukraine who
yeah,
have made
lots.
very clear that they want to be back with Russia. They want their territory to be Russian. I'm not saying it's a majority or anything, but there's enough of them
Well,
that it's been a problem.
here's the thing.
Uh,
8 years ago, they did have the majority. Now they
yes,
don't. That tells you how much has changed. Now, have they been killed off or intimidated into silence? I'm sure it's both. But we're hearing only 14,000 dead. It could be much worse. Keep in mind, the Russian vote was the majority, and now
yes,
it's not.
that's very odd in that short amount of time.
Yeah,
Um, So I think Putin has a lot of interest there. I think,
probably.
and like I said, the very first thing I said is I don't know who's right or wrong. I just know if I was Putin, I'd do exactly what he's doing,
Yeah, no,
exactly to a T. And I don't want the
yeah,
Ukrainian people to suffer. I don't want
no,
I don't want Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers killing each other because, like you
no,
said, they're basically brothers. It's
same
stupid,
people. Yeah,
but I understand Putin's side completely, and I understand the corrupt side of our government who thinks we need to do something because they got a lot of interest there too.
yeah. No, I do.
It's a lot of people are like, I just don't know what's going on. No, I know what's going on. You have vested interests who finally reached a tipping point, and there you go. It's the
Yeah.
same thing that every
Well,
war. It's about resources and money.
my
And
I agree with you 100%. My point is more on the hysterical hypocrisy. That's what's
oh,
irritating
it's
me.
ridiculous, especially coming out of the American establishment and the American media. Listen, I'm old enough to remember. You're old enough to remember. Everybody listens old enough to remember how much in lockstep every single one of these bitches were to get us into Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh,
And
they're
most Americans agreed, especially with Afghanistan, to go get Bin Laden. Right? That was
yeah.
what we were sold. We're just
The
going to go
Saudi
get Bin
Arabian
Laden.
guy, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's all we're doing. We're going to get Bin Laden. He needs to face justice for 9/11. Okay, let's go get him.
yeah.
And then we were there for 20 years.
And then we turned it over to the exact
10
people who
years
were in
after
charge
he
when
was
we came in. Yeah,
10 years after he was already dead, we were still there.
yeah. That's true.
Ah.
But no, I agree. But the thing is, look how giddy the politicians and the media is. They're so excited. They really, really, really want war. They really, 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 really want war. Look at them.
Yep.
Look at them. And Roger asked me once again, what's the situation in Taiwan? Well, if this becomes a multi-border war, which the Europeans and the Americans want, understand that. They
Yes.
want this. They want the mini World War III. It's what they want, right? They're pushing for it hard. So far, Putin isn't bit, and he usually doesn't bite. So they're going to have to actually take physical action to get him to pull him into it. I'm sure. But if that goes into literally a multi-border war, China will join with Russia.
Yeah.
Because these media idiots keep talking about Russia's the junior partner of China. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? Russian army is is very it's real, dude.
Yeah,
That's a
it's not a joke.
serious thing. China is weak, brother. This is why them
Yeah.
attacking Taiwan is stupid. Because here, let me explain this. What is the biggest threat to China? Embarrassment.
Yes.
They can't stand it. That's why their leader, Xi, gets so upset when people call him Winnie the Pooh that he bans a frickin' fictional bear.
I love it. It's the
They're
best thing ever.
shame. They can't stand it. They can't have the Chinese people making too much noise. It's all about being quiet for the Chinese government. And if they go into Taiwan, they will get their ass kicked. And that's with no American involvement. They
Yeah.
are
I actually
weak.
agree.
And
They're a complete paper tiger. They have financial power
they
that
do.
they
It's
wield,
an
and they
economic
have
war.
espionage like power that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
wield. But
And
China has never been. I know Sun Tzu comes from China, right? The art of war.
sure,
But when it comes to war, China sucks.
they've never been good
I,
at it. Yeah.
never
Never.
when it
Yeah.
comes to war.
Go watch
Never.
your Chinese movies. It's a bullshit.
Yes.
It's bullshit. Well, how do you think a little teeny island nation conquered them so
Yeah.
quickly? I mean,
Yeah.
come on,
There's
guys.
no reason Japan should still exist.
Yeah,
or Korea, but
yeah,
yet they do.
yeah. Well, technically, Korea is Japan. But don't tell them that.
Don't
Uh, uh,
shh.
yeah, shh.
They don't.
But
Don't
anyway,
tell 'em.
so there's no way China's going to do that. There's no way they're going to do that. They're good at economic war, and they've been kind of successful with it, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
But the problem is balancing the rhetoric in China is very difficult because if they rile up the citizenry too much and they demand Taiwan, they demand the head of Japan. Well, now the CCP has been forced into a war they can't win. Now,
Yeah.
however, if they can hide behind the tail of Russia in a big, huge multi-border conflict, they might try something with Russian support, right?
With Russia, especially with Russian air support,
Yeah,
because the Chinese Air Force is a joke,
yeah,
and everybody knows it.
yeah.
Everybody knows it, by the way. Like that's not even a. That's not like a. It's not even a secret. Like the Chinese Air Force is a joke. They would get obliterated by the American Air Force. At least I don't know. Maybe not anymore because our military is a joke too. But
Well, they're
and for
softer.
different
Yeah,
reasons.
yeah.
But I think the Air Force pilots are still pretty good. We haven't been infested with any kind of quotas for hiring there yet, and we still have the best pilots in the world besides the Israeli Air Force.
America's Air
Which,
Force is legit. Yeah, it is
yeah,
legit.
and but so is Russia's.
Yeah,
Russia's is
it
right
is.
up there, and
Well,
that's why they've been able to do what they've done in Ukraine
right.
with very little collateral damage.
Right. Well, I mean, when you can't touch the American Navy, America rules the
That's right.
ocean, right?
It's not even close.
It's not even
It's
close.
not
You
even.
can't touch the American infantry, men on the ground. We just have better training, better tech. Fight to fight, we're going to win most every battle. However, who has the better air force between Russia and America? It's questionable. It
Yeah,
is questionable. America
we.
holds
I
pretty
think ours
much
is
all the
bigger.
cards, but
Yeah, I think ours is bigger, but Russian their
those
fighters are
those
they're
fighter
good.
planes are badass, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, we don't want to see that happen at all,
No,
right?
under any
In any
circumstances.
circumstances. However, here's a map I wanted to show you. Now, keep in mind these little dying the line areas of Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk are actually red, and it's actually much more red. Matter of fact, the Russians are about to pincer that entire region off. And keep in mind, the majority of the Ukrainian army is just outside Donetsk, and they're encircled. Yeah, there is no Ukrainian army anymore. It's done.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah,
And they're moving into Odessa, and I don't think they'll have as much resistance as the media thinks they'll have in Odessa. Because keep in
no.
mind, there's a lot of quiet Russians there who were literally murdered and told to shut up. Right,
Yeah,
it's not going to go the way they think. Russia is having they're succeeding in everything they want to do now. However, down here in the city of Mariupol, it's a very important Black Sea port, and it's of course essential that it be taken. The problem is the Russians have beat the hell out of the Azov to such a point that they're hiding in this city, and they say we will die to the last man, and they're not letting citizens escape Mariupol because they're using them as human shields. That's what's happening. That's the truth. Okay,
right.
whatever the media tells you, it's full of shit. Go and watch the damn video on the ground from the people who are there. Go watch that, and you'll see what's happening. All right, and I believe this is my personal opinion. I have no proof of this, but I believe this crazy son of a bitch and his 50,000 are brought in to deal with the Azov and Mariupol. I think
Probably.
that's what it
It
is.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Because here's what Putin needs to deal with them. He's even said, and again, it's Putin. He's not exactly a friend of the truth, but he's even
No.
said
No.
that one of his main, his Cassius Belli for this is the Nazification of Ukraine. He doesn't want Nazis right on his border
Yeah. And it's
for
not
many
like,
reasons.
well,
And it's not even like it's a political, like, oh, Nazis bad. No, no. Putin has a long memory, so does Russia. He knows what the
they hate the
Nazis.
Nazis. Yes, they
Yeah,
do.
they're not
Yeah.
friendly over
Right.
there.
And
So I don't. That's not a bad cause, to be honest.
to be
And
fair,
wouldn't be surprised if he decided to send his most rabid animals
I
at
think
those
that's what
guys.
he's done. Yeah. And do keep in mind, not all Ukrainians are freaking Nazis, dude. This is a very
No, no, no,
specific
no, no, no.
group, but they have power. And keep in mind, the Americans and the Europeans have been arming these psychos for
Yes,
years, right? That just understand that your tax dollars are going toward arming actual neo-Nazi soldiers murdering people. This is
that's right.
not a joke. It's real.
Not
Um,
just the nonsense of a bunch of weirdos in khaki walking around with torches in
no, we're
Charlottesville. No, no,
talking
no.
real deal.
The real deal.
I wouldn't suggest you watch it, but if you go look online, particularly Telegram, it's a very open place. You can put anything you want on there. But
Yes.
there are video showing these monsters, these Azov monsters, and the shit they're doing. Man, they're literally crucifying people and setting them on fire. It's not a joke, dude. Right? And
Yeah,
who are they killing? Are they doing this to Russian soldiers? No, they're doing it to citizens of Mariupol to terrify them into not moving.
that's right.
This is real, right? So I think the Chechens are for that city particularly. So Mariupol is screwed. It's absolutely fucking screwed, right? But keep in mind that the rest of Ukraine isn't necessarily a bunch of Nazis because they're not. But let's
Right.
also not say that the Ukrainians are innocent little children in this, because for the past 8 years, they've all the citizens in Ukraine know what's happening in the Donbass and Lugansk. They know what's going on, and they didn't say nothing, and they didn't do nothing, just like the international community. So I don't want anyone to die, and war sucks. It's that simple, right? And I certainly have sympathy for the Ukrainian people, but I mean,
Yes.
let's not kid ourselves that they didn't know what was going on. There was a full-on
Right.
genocide going on, and they all knew about it, right? And further issues that are going on, because it's clear if you pay attention and you listen to actual military strategists, not CNN. Yeah,
Yes.
you'll see that it's clear that Putin wants to take the eastern part. He's basically going to take everything east of the Dnieper is what he wants. This big river
Yes.
that runs through it. And that's what he wants. But the nonsense coming out of the West and all their pressures and all their sanctions and all their bullshit has gone to such an extreme that you're kind of put him in a situation where fuck it, he should just take it all. I mean, they've
Well,
created it.
especially considering apparently America's not doing anything really about it. So, I mean, let's be honest. NATO is America.
It is,
If
yeah,
the American government or the American people in this case is really what it is, decide that they don't want war, then there's no war for
right.
NATO to have.
And then
It's just that simple.
they'll have to red flag it like they did with World
Yeah.
War II, and World War One too. Yeah, those were both
Yep.
red flagged America to get in those wars. But nevertheless, it's an ugly situation over there, and all of these sanctions and stuff have gotten way out of control. And you're basically pushing Putin into a corner where there's no reason now, because it's clear what his intentions were at the beginning. Because keep in mind, day 1 and 2, he took complete control of the skies and wiped out
Yep.
most of the military airports and control. 2 days, right?
Oh no, the media over here has people convinced that they don't have their superiority, and I'm like, you're just delusional if you think that. Delusional. Obviously they do. You can
Yeah,
watch any
you're right,
videos coming
Eric.
out of
You're
there.
right.
You can watch any actual citizens or even soldiers that have like TikToks and Telegram accounts and
Yeah,
things.
no, you can see what's
They
going on.
absolutely have air superiority. They can hit
Right.
anywhere in that country whenever they want, and there's
They
nothing
do.
Ukraine can do about
and
it.
I feel bad for the Russians a little bit in this too, the soldiers, because they're getting yelled at by babushkas,
Yes.
right? For what they're doing, and they're like, I'm sorry, we're trying to, we're trying to help the people over here, like, and the babushkas yelling at them. But go look for information. Don't listen to the media because it's literally hysterical hypocrisy, guys. I've never seen it this bad. I've never seen it this bad. And I've looked at lots of reels from World War II, by the way. And the
Yeah.
American government was trying so hard to convince the Americans to get in that war, so hard for so many,
Yep.
many years, and Americans wouldn't budge. And then Pearl Harbor, right?
And then they
Uh,
let Pearl Harbor. I mean, then Pearl Harbor happened.
and then Pearl
I
Harbor
mean,
happened, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Just out of nowhere, the Japanese just
yeah,
decided to attack America. There was
yeah,
no cause at all. It was
yeah.
completely unwarranted.
And they were lucky too, because here, Yamamoto-san, the general, he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, yeah, we shouldn't attack America. That's a sleeping tiger. We're sleeping. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. But he was overruled. So,
Well, not only that, we're also very lucky that we just happened to have sent off all of the aircraft carriers that we couldn't rebuild in a
well, we
year.
did it intentionally. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, conveniently,
Okay,
right?
yeah. Well, of course, they had broken the Japanese code a decade before. right?
Yes.
So they knew exactly. But that's just another red flag. History is just littered with them. They might red flag this situation too. But nevertheless, my point being is the hysteria is canceling everything, right?
Yeah.
Sports, money, banks. They're stealing Russians' properties. It's like, what? Where did you get the right to do that? Excuse me. There, it's just absolutely insane. It's so much so they sent Sean Penn in to deal with it. You get him, Sean. Poor Sean. He went in there to make peace, and nothing happened. But of course, with all the efforts of Sean Penn, they've still canceled everything Russian, including, and I shit you not, Russian cats.
How
Did you
dare
hear
they?
this news? Did you hear this news?
How actually dare they?
How dare they? But this is real. It's not. I know it's a joke, but it's real, dude. They literally the pet show organizations in the West have banned Russian cats from being in their
So
shows. Are you kidding
I
me?
would like these organizations to explain to me how are they behaving any differently than terrorists?
Well, it's the
Because what they're doing, the only thing they're doing, is trying to create consternation in the populace of Russia for political change. It's terrorism. It might not be violent terrorism, but it's still terrorism.
yeah,
And
no,
that's
it
what they're
is.
committing economic terrorism. That's
It's
what they're doing.
it's the cancel culture taken to country level is what it is.
Yeah.
And of course the
And for
hysteria.
that
Yeah.
alone, I side with Putin. For
Well,
that alone. Because if they're willing to do that to the third or second most powerful country on the planet, that literally, allegedly, has the power to wipe out all life on Earth if they wanted
oh,
to,
their cobalt warheads would do that. Yes, it would.
um, then they're willing to do anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
And they have to be stopped.
Yeah, no, it's insanity, guys. The amount of cancel culture going on over this is ridiculous. Russian books, Russian actors, Russian singers, anything Russian is canceled, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever because of
Yeah.
all of these sanctions you're dropping on. They have literally left no cards to play, none. Right? They have dumped everything on top, and all they've done is told. And of course, I guarantee you, Putin knew this was going to happen. I guarantee it. And all they've done is made Russia have no choice. So whereas you asked me a week ago when this started, I would have told you, they're just going to take east of the Dnieper and it'll be done. I don't think so. I think they're going to just take Ukraine now because why
Yeah.
shouldn't they? There's no reason
Why not?
not to now,
Why not?
right?
And in fact, if Putin was as crazy as they think he is, once he gets Ukraine, there's no reason to stop. I
Well,
mean, if you're gonna cut him off from the world and make his citizens suffer, take it all.
he's
Rebuild the USSR. Do it.
I think the reason why all his really good weapons and tanks and airplanes and soldiers aren't in the fight yet is because he's not going to bite. Putin has shown us that he has steel nerves. He's proven
Yeah.
this over the 20 years he's been in charge. But he's just going to wait for them to red flag it because they are going. I think they kind of
Like,
put
I'm not
themselves in a corner.
advocating for him to do that. I'm not advocating for any of it. I'm just saying, if I'm him and I see this happening, which, like you said, he knew it was going to happen. Of course he did.
Yeah.
Uh, well, what is the reason for me not to do it then? What is the cause for me not to? Because he and the Russians, the Russian government, I should say, the Kremlin, do want to rebuild the empire, basically,
Yeah, sure.
USSR
I believe
territories.
that. I believe that.
That's absolutely correct, I would say.
Yeah.
So why not? Europe's weak. Europe can't defend itself. Period. Everybody knows it. Trump put a big red flag on it, saying you guys can't defend yourself, and you're buying oil from Russia while you're telling me that they're supposed to be your number one threat. That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So I see no good reason, if I'm him, why I don't put that card on the table.
Yeah, but he's gonna wait for them to red flag it though, and let me
I
explain
agree.
why.
He's gonna wait till he has enough cause to do it.
Yeah. And let me explain why, and also explain why I know Putin's been preparing this for a while and why he's not sweating any of it. Let me explain. There's a lot of things that have been going on recently that no one pays attention to because the media is stupid and all they want to talk about is gay something or another and gay swimmers or what the fuck ever they're
Yes.
talking about. And yes, devilish, they have canceled vodka. Fuck them. But no, here's the thing, right? Let me give you a little update what's going on the past year or so. All right, there was a big war down in the old Cossack lands on the Caspian Sea there between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Just ended a little while ago. And what happened in that war is you had Erdogan, which Erdogan's country is about to fall into bankruptcy, and he's desperately trying to save it. This war,
Yep.
Turkey, by the way, but Erdogan's about to lose an election coming up. The whole country is about to collapse, and he's beside himself because he needs Russia. But this is costing them a ton of money because their entire freaking economy is based on Ukraine and Russia. So Erdogan is desperately shaking, literally shitting in his pants. But Erdogan in Turkey, the Americans via Erdogan and the Europeans as well, were supporting Azerbaijan in this fight. And Azerbaijan, so technically they're allies of the Americans, right, against the Armenians. And Azerbaijan made a deal with Russia. They said, look, stay out of it and we will support you. And Putin was like, sure. So
Yeah.
Azerbaijan wins the war. Now, you would think they'd be beholden to the Americans, via all these other channels that ultimately armed them, right? But immediately they sided with the Russians and they gave Russians lots of intel. One of the big intel was on the Javelin missile, that missile you keep hearing so much about, right?
Hmm.
It's a really, really easy way to defeat that missile. Just put a bunch of metal on top of your tank, and it absolutely makes it useless. That's why you see all these Russian tanks have these like little chicken wire on top of their tanks. If you were wondering why that was, right?
Hmm.
But the Azerbaijanis gave a lot of information about how the American drones work and all kind of stuff. Right, I'm sure Russia already knew some of this, but it's just part of the deal. So why would Russia make a deal with Azerbaijan, a country most people have probably never heard of? Right? I mean, you're more than
Mm.
likely heard of Armenia over Azerbaijan, right?
Right.
But why did he do this? Well, because Erdogan, what has he been doing? How exactly did he bankrupt the gigantic country of Turkey? How did that happen? Well, because they've been spending absolutely insane amount of money building oil pipelines all over the Caspian in the Middle East, so that they can bypass Russia and the Americans and OPEC to collect all the oil from Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all these other countries, and therefore corner the market on oil. And he bankrupted his freaking country doing so. And what has happened? Basically, Russia is poised to just take it all that money and all that work they put into all those oil lines. Russia's going to
Yep.
end up owning all of it, and
Ours
Azerbaijan
now.
is the key port. So if you think these sanctions keeping Russian oil is going to do anything, you're out of your goddamn mind, because they're going to put it through the Caspian Sea network. And of course, keep in mind also, Putin has a deal with China, a very tight deal with China. He's also got a deal with India. And he has plenty of people sell his oil, his wheat, his tin, his nickel, and his coal, and all the other stuff he's got. He's got plenty of buyers. He's not going to
Yep.
lose. They're not going to lose a penny in Russia, right?
Well, here's the other thing that people don't talk about for some reason, but everybody should. A lot of Russia, a big portion of it is frozen because it's Siberia,
Yep.
right? Or basically frozen all the
They
time.
they like global
As the
warming.
planet warms up, which according to them is the biggest threat in the world, that's going to change.
Oh yeah,
That land's going to become, land
valuable.
that he can
Yes,
use.
yes,
So Russia has a vested interest in controlling these markets as much as possible because they very well could have huge untapped potential,
right.
even if it's just in grain, even if it's just in food. If Siberia thaws enough that they can plant stuff there, which it will, I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't, that's a huge get for
Yeah.
Russia, just
Well,
period.
Russia already making a ton of money. They're the biggest wheat seller in the world. Keep in mind
Yep.
that 80% of all the pasta you buy in the store is made from Russian wheat. Did you know
Yep.
that? Right. Also, keep this in mind. Another little coup d'état was attempted in another country. Lots of evidence showing America involved in that too. Keep in mind, the whole time this war has been going on, America is bombing Somalia. No, have you heard that? Any news on that? No, but we are. We're bombing the shit out of it because it's a separatist area in Somalia. They wants to get away from the frickin' butchers of the South, but America has
Yeah.
decided to side with who? The butchers, right?
Yep.
Because they want to protect the Suez Canal, you see. But anyway, that's going on. No one's talking about that. But there was a coup d'etat in Kazakhstan just a little while ago. And what did Russia do? They went in and they stomped that shit out. And they keeping the government installed. And what did that do? It absolutely solidified the relationship with Russia more than it already had been. Keep in mind that Russia's also been dumping tons of money into Kazakhstan to build dams and water control areas and farmland because, the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians and the other countries that have actual sensical and intelligent leaders know that we're coming into a solar minimum. It's going to get
That's right.
cold for a while, guys, and they need to
Yep.
have more food for
Oh.
their people, so they're preparing for it while our governments talk about goddamn gay swimmers. Fuck!
We're not a serious country, Chester. We're not a serious country. A serious country, none of this would ever have happened. Because a
You, you
serious
know,
country would have had talks with Mr. Putin, actual ones, not just ones on camera, and made sure that these escalations did not continue to happen. We wouldn't have kept poking the bear in our hubris, and then got the Pikachu face shocked when the bear decided he'd had enough. Because that's what this is. Most of America's foreign debacles over the last 20 or so years have been our fault because of stupid
yeah,
imperialistic foreign policy. They talk about
yeah,
we can't be
resources and
isolationist.
yeah,
There's a huge difference between isolationist, like China was for a long time, and not just interventionist, full on imperialist that America has become. And our empire's stupid. It doesn't make any sense for the citizens of the empire. It doesn't enrich our empire. All it does is keep the people near the top of the food chain fat and happy.
yeah.
That's it. The
Unfortunately,
average American citizen has not benefited one iota from the imperialism of our government over the last 50 years or whatever it's been. Nothing has been gained by us, for us, by that.
it is getting
Yet
worse and worse.
it
It
keeps
is.
happening and keeps going and keeps going. Now we have at the pump. We got $4 a gallon gas. Nobody can afford it. Nobody
Right. Well,
can afford it.
we could just use
Um,
our own gas.
well, exactly. And you have this whole Ukraine situation was largely created by American intervention. Now, obviously, there's a lot of history there and stuff too. But the current crisis, quote unquote, was caused by us, and Putin capitalized on it. Putin was very clear he didn't want any more Western expansion into NATO, or Eastern, well, I guess it would be Eastern expansion from the West into the buffer states, as they call them. And we just kept doing it to the point where, like you said, we literally staged a coup, which we've done all over the world, in Ukraine to install a puppet government, which Zelensky's an American puppet. That's why they're trying to make him a hero. Um, of a literal freaking comedian who was a nobody, effectively, just a comedian, but he was one that they could control and would allow them to slush around the dirty money that they have from all sorts of nonsense from all over the world and clean up their money. And I can't blame Putin at all. I would have done the exact same thing. In fact, he's more restrained than I would be.
Yeah.
And
No.
that's it to
And
me.
and I've just laid out a bunch of information I'm sure most of you don't know anything about, right? And because it's not in the mainstream media, no one's talking about it. However, I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm going to say that in the next decade, you're going to see the trade alliance between India, Russia, and China solidify into an actual Eurasian Union. I mean, an actual Eurasian Union, like the European Union. And what you're going to
Yeah.
see is a lot of these little countries around them are going to join pretty quickly. Southeast Asia, Indonesia, probably, all the little Middle Eastern countries, I'm sure, will jump right in on that. All the Central Asian countries will jump in on that. I'm predicting this will happen, and I think a lot of people in the world will probably applaud it. Actually, although we as Americans, it is a threat. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. However, I live in Japan, and Japan find themselves in a very unique situation here because let's be completely fair. Japan is a satrap of America. It is,
Yes.
right?
Vassal
Um,
state.
it's a vassal state, and of course they're on board, and they're trying not to make too much noise, but they're like, yeah, Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad. They're going to have to make a decision here in Japan. They're either going to have to side completely with the West, or they're going to have to join what's going on here in the eastern part of Eurasia, or majority of Eurasia. And I'm not sure what Japan's going to do, because if they don't somehow find a way to join that, and I've always suggested that I think Japan should become the Switzerland of Asia, actually. I think that would be a very powerful position for them.
Yeah.
However, if Japan doesn't make the right choice, they will literally be alone in Asia. Literally, and there's plenty of
Mm-mm.
countries that enjoy Japan and that would support them normally. But if you have that tri-union going on in Eurasia, no one's going to say boo. No one's going to say boo. Nothing's going to happen. They'll say nothing, and Japan will be 100% alone. So Japan, I think, finds themselves in a pretty dangerous situation, and I'm curious to see what the leaders do. So far, they're just making noise for the West, as you know, as they're told. But this situation is it's out of hand, clearly, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
The whole situation's stupid. It's not America's business. It's not the American people's business, even if it is our crooked ass governments. Uh, I hope that the people who control the strings in Ukraine just give Putin what he wants and avoid a bloody long conflict. Because Putin hasn't even put his best foot forward, which is crazy. And if he really wanted to wipe that country out, it'd be gone by now. Simple as that. Everybody knows. It's not even a question. Like his nuclear arsenal could do it. If he wanted them gone, they'd be gone.
Well, now
So
someone asked about
I
nuclear stuff earlier. I don't think you're going to see any of the Satan II missiles or any of the Cobalt
no,
warheads
no,
get
no.
put into play. I think what you might see is tactical nukes, though.
Good. I
That's
honestly
possible.
think that it's foolish for the West to believe that there's not tactical nukes, suitcase nukes, or something to
All
that
over.
effect
All
all
over.
over, all of our
Not just
major
Russian ones
cities.
either. American
Yeah.
ones, too.
Why wouldn't there be? That
Why
makes
wouldn't there
sense
be?
to me. That's what I would do if I had that tech. Of course, it's a great bargaining chip. Um, but yeah. Anyway, regardless of that, if I was Zelensky or whoever actually calls the shots in Ukraine, I would just give Putin what he wants.
Yeah.
I would sit down. I would call up Vlad. What are you after? And give it to him. Because otherwise, a lot of people who have nothing to do with it are going to suffer miserably and horribly for nothing. Because at the end of
Yes.
the day, he's going to get what he wants anyway. No
Yep.
one's coming to save you. And if America does get involved in it, you might actually see a coup in America because the American people want nothing to do with this war.
Yeah.
We already paying more at the damn gas station. We've already had over 20% inflation in the last year. I don't care if they pretend it's under 10%. Go to the grocery store. Potatoes are 30 cents more on the dollar than they were last year.
Wow. Now,
So don't give me that.
I still say the Bilderbergs is exactly what they want. They want a civil war in America
Oh,
because America is the real big resistance they got to deal with. But
yep.
that's another conversation. I did spend the week in Berlin. I was giving a lecture at a university. During I just spent, why not spend a week over there? I only spoke on a single day. I just did. So the interesting thing is this all kicked off while I was there. And I spoke to the German people, a lot of, professors and, my peers, right?
Yeah.
And a bunch of other people. And the Germans are not excited about any of this. Let me just tell you, on the ground,
Good.
the German media might be screaming, and just like all the rest of the hysterical media, but the
What's
German,
Germany going to send? It's like 4 planes. Get
well,
out of here.
they really don't want to get involved at all. They don't like what their government is doing because Germany is beholden to the Russians. Keep in mind that Merkel, in her wisdom, shut down all the nuclear power plants in Germany.
Yes.
Idiot move, I know. Just from talking to the German professors in particular, because they're different than American professors, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about anthropology, history here. We're not talking about, gender studies or things like that. It's different anyway.
Well,
Anthropology
you're
is
talking about actual gender studies, not the nonsense they
right,
do in
right,
liberal
and
liberal
there's
arts degrees.
and even though it is technically part of the liberal arts, there's a lot of science involved in anthropology,
Yeah.
right? But anyway, they're very concerned. They don't like what the German government or the European governments are doing. Of course, they feel horrible for the Ukrainians. They don't want this to go on, but they also understand that this has been coming for a long time. And I was really surprised because you know me, I don't shut up. I don't have a filter. But they agreed with me 100%, dude. They agreed, and
Good,
they had more of
good.
a front seat, a front row seat to it than I do, right?
I
And
think a lot of the world, most people are absolutely fed up with these wars. Uh, I don't think, and I obviously there's not. If they had the consent that they've been trying to drum up heavily, NATO would already be directly involved. This is literally what NATO was created for. Um, so the fact that it hasn't been directly overtly involved, of course we're doing stuff back channel, but nothing. We're not sending American boys in yet, uh, or even German boys, whatever. Is a good sign that I think even though a lot of the people, there's a lot of disparate opinions and we're divided all over the West, massive division like we haven't seen in a long time. Probably not since, in all honesty, the Protestant Reformation. Like the division is deep and strong.
yeah, that is true.
Um,
Yeah.
I would say the fact that we seem to be mostly united against war, against a war with Russia, against over Ukraine, a country that we all know is a cesspool.
Yeah,
Like
unfortunately.
it's just not a
And
place anybody's willing to die for.
well,
You know what
politically.
I mean?
And keep in
Yeah.
mind, the Ukrainian people are just people, just like the Russian
Yes.
people are just people. Everybody, Chechen people are just well. But anyway, they're just people, and they're caught in this, and it sucks. And all the Ukrainians sending their wives and women off and going back to fight. I mean, I respect that, dude. I respect it. All these people wanting to come in and fight on the Ukrainian side, the ones who are doing it for the right reasons, I respect that, right? So, I'm just giving you the political and historical context for what's going on there. I am not at all happy that people are dying in Ukraine any
Yeah.
more than I am at the other several dozen war zones on the earth right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll believe that the people in the West, especially these idiots you see on social media who put you the Ukraine flag in their bio or whatever. I'll believe they care when they know anything about what's going on in Yemen. Anything. Just give me a rundown. Just give me a bullet point. What's happening down there?
Yeah, that they're
They'll be
not
like,
telling you.
what's Yemen? What's that? They won't even probably
Yeah.
even know it's a country
And
where it is.
that's a disaster.
Yeah.
But I'm going to change the subject and go on to more lighter things. But I'm sure this will continue because I think Putin now must take all of Ukraine, and I really think the Russians are just waiting for a red flag. I really think because keep in mind the first 2 days they really accomplished the main control goals they wanted.
Yeah.
Now they're just basically rooting out Ukrainian soldiers, taking out the army, and liberating cities, and bringing in huge supply chains to give food and water to these people who have been absolutely abandoned by the Ukrainians. But I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but because I could go on quite a bit of what's exactly going on, but I think we laid it out pretty well. So let me move on to something a little lighter. I do have to ask you a question, sir, and I might hold you responsible. Um,
What's that? For
have
the
you seen
cat?
the? No, not for the cat. That's
Oh,
just pure stupidity. Have you seen the movie The King's Man?
I have not.
Okay. Uh, any of you in the chat seen that movie? Because I hold you responsible. I thought we were friends. No one told me. No one warned me. Because here's the thing, dude. That first movie was freaking badass. The Kingsman,
Yes.
Secret Service
Yeah.
game. Absolutely awesome. Perfect. Lightning in a bottle movie. It was great fun. Fun is the main word here. Fun, right? Fun, goofy, James Bond, like the old classic, not the Daniel Craig boring shit. The
Everything's
old,
serious.
yeah,
Yeah.
the old fun Sean Connery stuff, right? And they even kind of make little tongue-in-cheek jokes regarding the old Bond stuff in it. It's great. It's a wonderful movie. If you haven't seen the original Kingsman, go watch it, dude. It's great. There are a couple things I would have changed. Colin Farrell was badass. This Eggsy character, where is he? I don't see the Eggsy character. Well, whatever. Maybe this is supposed to be the Eggsy character. The Eggsy character is not my favorite. I probably went with something else. But Colin Farrell, Colin Farrell,
Firth,
Colin
Firth.
Firth
Yeah,
owns that shit, dude. He
yeah,
owns that
he
movie,
kills it.
dude. It's
They
freaking
literally brought him
awesome.
back from the dead for the sequel
They
because
did. They
it
did.
was too good.
Now the sequel. Now let's talk a little bit about that. It's disappointing. It's nowhere near as good as the first, and the
Correct.
reason why is really really simple. They jumped the shark, and I don't know why. Because the first movie was such a big hit, people loved it. It was a big hit. Why are you jumping the shark so early? I don't get it, but they did. They way over jumped the shark, and it's Kingsman is the original one is very whimsical, right? This is way too much whimsy. It's absurdity.
Yeah,
So this I consider the Golden Circle to be a failure because it got a little outside of itself. But you know what it is though? It's a Kingsman movie. It is.
right.
It is. Now I don't know what the hell this crap is.
I haven't seen it, so I don't either.
Don't you dare, sir. You will throw shit at your TV. My wife was even groaning at it.
What
I mean,
about how's Rasputin in that? I
well,
mean, I know he's like a kung fu fighter for some reason,
Well,
but
the action scenes in this movie are freaking spectacular. Matter of fact, the fight between Rasputin and the I can't remember this black actor's name. He's a pretty good actor. His name is Sola, I think, in the movie. But the fight
yeah,
between those two is freaking epic. It's one of the best fight scenes ever put on film.
nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The action in this movie is spectacular. It's really good. But everything else in between sucks major balls. It's no, it's as if they never watched the first movie. It's a whimsy. It's fun. It's
Right,
more leaning toward Roger Moore than Sean Connery in its whimsy, right?
that's right.
And it's supposed to be fun, but it's boring as shit. There's no fun at all. There's not a single laugh, not one. It's played serious, but yeah, it's basically a war film. But it's not even that. If you like war films, you're not going to like this because it doesn't have enough of the war film in it. But it's
Weird.
so weird. And of course, you have this lady here, and in the first movie, right? We have the girl who played Lancelot. I can't remember the actress's name, but I can't remember the guy who played Eggs either. She was a pretty solid heroine. She was good, right? No problem. She was a very capable, successful young woman, and she was part of the team. Owadi, finished, right? This lady is your typical modern Hollywood bitch. She always has something nasty to say to the men. She's mean. She's perfect at every goddamn thing. She's a goddamn genius at everything, and she's a mean, nasty bitch. And it's like, why? Women can be successful and not bitchy.
Yes, in fact, and often I would say more often than not they are.
Yeah.
All the successful women I've ever known, save a handful, weren't bitches. They were sweethearts. They just
Yes.
were. Like they were pleasant to be around. They were, intelligent and capable in conversation and in their job. Um, yeah, but it
Right.
was always there was always obviously there's a handful, but just like there's a handful of guys who are assholes or whatever.
Right.
Uh, this idea that in order to be successful you have to be some kind of snarky bad bitch. No.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say most of them could be way more successful if they weren't that.
Right. Well, and no, and it's true. And there's no need for it. If she was just a cool member of the team character, she would have been fine. There's no problem at all. It's
Yeah.
not weird to have her there. It's not like we're not making any kind of statements like that. It's the typical Hollywood thing. A tough, successful, intelligent woman has to be a bitch that puts the men down all the time. And of course, another thing in all white men bad. This is very much white men bad movie, just like the new Batman movie is white men bad theme is running all the way through it. They so much so in the new Batman movie that they literally flood the city to cleanse it of the white men. For fuck's sake. The only difference with the Batman, though, is the majority of that movie is, from what I understand, absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. One of the best Batman movies
Well,
ever made.
it is. The whole movie is.
Yeah.
And even the ending, it's just there is the weird virtue signaling
Yeah.
stuff in there.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
it sticks out too because I went and watched it. There's a part where Catwoman she makes a little offhanded comment about white privileged assholes
Yeah.
to Bruce Wayne,
To
to
Bruce Wayne.
Batman.
Yeah. Bruce
And he
Wayne
just kind of
is.
look. He just kind of looks at her like,
Yeah, well,
uh
he's just
huh.
another white man, right? And it's at least in the Batman, it's for the most part, it's a really solid Batman movie.
Yeah.
But it's still got that stupid Hollywood, the message inside of it,
Yes.
right? This movie's
Yes.
slap full of it. Let me ask you a question. Rasputin, a historical figure, the guy
Oh.
looks perfect for it, and the fight scene is freaking awesome. Rasputin kicks ass. But beyond that, what do you know about Rasputin? What is the general knowledge of the American on Rasputin?
Oh. Probably taken from like a Disney movie or something. But I not much. I know he was like some kind of I don't know what his official title was, but basically he was said to be like a warlock of some
Huh,
description, a Satanist, and he
huh,
was very high up in the Russian monarchy at the time,
yeah,
uh,
he was.
and apparently he had a very large penis.
He did.
So
He had a
that too.
gigantic penis. He's famous for
Yeah.
that. But no, let me tell you who Rasputin was. He comes from little Russian village, and he's part of a. I can't remember what they call themselves. They call themselves the Chisky or the Kiski or I can't remember the name of it. My Russian is horrible. But they're a part of there's a bunch of them. There's still some around today. There's a certain sect of Christians that broke off in 1666, of course, with the whole Jewish debacle and the splitting of the nation thing. I'm not going to get into that. It's a long history. But basically, there's a certain type of Christian and Jewish and even Islamic groups that they believe that in order to be purified by God, you have to have true sin. So instead of trying to avoid sin like Puritans do, they actually embrace it. So they'll have like orgies and they'll get drunk and they do these crazy things and then they'll self flagellate, literally, afterward because now that they've done sin, now they can get rid of it and be golden in God's eye. This is, I know it's weird, but there's many of them, these kind of sects. He was part of that. And he was supposed to have some kind of magical power. I think he probably just had a strong knowledge of herbalism coming from the countryside. 'Cause keep in mind, at that time, the Industrial Revolution and the whole steampunk image we have was the thing of the day. It was the cool, fashionable thing to be modern and electrical, right? And therefore, the old healing medicines, the holistic medicines, it kind of been put to the side, and I think he just had knowledge of that. That's my assumption. But yes, so this guy was definitely an orgiast. He had sex with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of women, and they were happy to do so because, like I said, he's famous for having a very large penis. He was a monk, a religious Christian leader. And he was tight, 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 tight with the Russian Tsar Nicholas's family because their son had some kind of malady. There's a lot of argument of what it might have been, and he cured it where no one else could. So that's who Rasputin is. Now, in the movie, as far as the fight scenes, he's freaking badass, dude. It's freaking awesome. But however, in the movie, he's some weird, creepy homosexual.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It's not on message. They can't make gay people evil. What's
No, they
going on here?
well, I think technically they're saying he's bisexual, but
Oh,
he really, really, really wanted to get in Voldemort's pants. He really did. Yeah, very serious about it. Anyway, this movie sucks so bad. It doesn't understand its source material. There's not a single joke in it. There's no whimsy whatsoever. The action scenes are epic, and just watching the action scenes is worth it because there are a couple of really good fight scenes. Like I said, the one between Rasputin and this black actor here is freaking awesome. It's really really good. And this black actor he's awesome anyway in everything he does, but he's really good in the movie. But it's and Ralph Fiennes, his acting is kind of poor, which is weird because we
it's
know he's a good actor. But I just don't understand why in that. And they put sequel bait in that damn movie, dude.
oh. Yeah, they've made this into a franchise, sadly.
But the only
Um,
good thing is the first one. The second one I consider a failure, and this is ridiculous. It's insulting to the. It's an anathema to the Kingsman.
That's tragic. Actually, that's not good to hear at all. Because I really liked that first movie a lot. That first movie was great.
Um, Yeah, no, the first movie was great, and don't watch anymore. Eric asked, "Did Rasputin kill Nicholas's the second family, or am I thinking about the Anastasia cartoon? Probably, because he didn't have anything to do with it. He was dead already. His when and it's really sad what happened in Russia because Nicholas actually was very much a proponent of the people." And he was very happy to create parliaments and give the people more freedom. He was very much a member of the Enlightenment that Catherine the Great had kind of pushed, and he was very pro the people. But of course, Lenin was. Keep in mind, Lenin was an agent of the German state. Just keep
Yeah,
this in
pure evil.
mind. And he was
Pure
an
evil.
evil son of a bitch. He was also
Yep.
a Jew, just so you know. So
Yeah.
was Stalin, by the way. And
Yes.
of course, all of those Marxists are and back in
And
those
they
days were.
hated Christians so much they slaughtered millions of them in
Yeah.
the Ukraine. But that's another
Yeah,
topic.
that's another topic. Yeah, of course, another reason for the Ukrainians they hate the Russians. So
Yes.
I understand the animosity. However, no, after Tsar Nicholas, he signed away his complete right and the entire future of his people, his family's right to the throne. A bunch of Leninist soldiers just assassinated him and his family, and they never found Anastasia's body. They probably sold her in or just raped her to death somewhere, more than likely. I mean,
Yeah.
I know the people like to keep the mystery going, but it's probably just ugly. It's probably just ugly. But then again, those things are ugly. War is ugly. Bad things happen, dude.
Chester, did you see the Batman movie, or were you just going by what other people said?
I know I haven't seen it yet, but I mean,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I have listened to critics who I agree with,
Yeah.
and so I know that I'm going to have the same opinion.
I
Basically, I'll
need to
probably
watch
love
it
it
again.
in general.
It is a long movie, and I was an idiot and bought a giant freaking soda
Oh
and was
goodness.
drinking it, so I had to
Uh,
piss twice.
oh God.
So I missed a few minutes here or there. But I need to watch it again, and if it's as good the second time or better, it will be the best Batman movie ever made.
It
It's that good.
sounds like
It's
it's really
right
good,
there.
but
Yeah.
the message is deep in
Yeah.
it, dude.
But
Uh,
in fairness to Batman as a character, when it comes to the idea of white guys bad, Batman's always had that problem. He doesn't have a single non-white villain of repute. Like
yeah,
they're all, when you think about it for a second, they're all white dudes.
yeah, sure,
Every one of
but they're
them.
not evil because they're white.
That's true, and none of these guys are. I wouldn't say any of it's framed that way. To be honest, I think you can interpret it that way, but I don't think that's intentional. There is the case of all the black guys are good people, but one of them's Jim Gordon, so he needs to be a good person. The other one, she's a little bit insufferable when you first meet her, but by the end, she's actually pretty cool. And the other one's Catwoman, and I
And
wouldn't say she's a good person.
she's bisexual, by the way. She wants you to know that Catwoman's bisexual. It's very
Yeah, and
important that
literally nobody cares.
very important.
But the other one's Catwoman, and she's not a good person. That's kind of the point of Catwoman is she's not a good person. She's not, but she's
Yeah,
not
no,
an
she's
evil
not. She's a
person.
villain.
She's right in the middle there.
She's a thief. But
Yeah,
just so you guys know, don't watch this movie. And I blame
don't
you
do it.
for not telling me not to watch it. I do.
Yeah, I blame
I,
everybody else too. Me too.
I'm angry because this sucks so bad. I can't believe how bad this sucked. My God, dude. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on here.
Where are we at?
Go ahead.
Lord of the Rings star Ian McKellen rejects idea actors must share exact qualities as their characters. We're acting, we're pretending. I agree with him, but probably not for the reason he thinks.
Well, yes, but of course, what he's saying is right. And keep in mind, he's gay. He gets extra points.
That's right. And he gets to play straight men and gay men.
He does. And
You know,
wizards, which aren't
and
human, by the
wizards,
way.
which are whatever they want to be, because they're wizards.
They're wizards. Yeah.
I
Uh,
agree with him insofar as I think actors need to be allowed to act. I did
mhm,
act for a little while, and it's not as easy as people think, but it's nowhere near as hard as actors pretend.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's best if you just get the best actor for the role that you're looking for.
Yep.
That said, that role needs to have defined characteristics, and every talent agency in the world has these, or not talent
Sure.
agency, sorry, talent calls has these. before people show up. Typically, right? There's some form
Of
of
course.
description of what this character's supposed to look like or supposed to be before the casting call is what I was looking for. Before the casting call happens, and so if I don't know because I'm just going by the headline, but I agree that the actors need to be allowed to be actors. So if it's a straight man playing a gay character, okay, can he do it? Can he pull that character off, whatever the script calls for? As long as he can, then it shouldn't matter. It's same with race, I would say, under the normal conditions, where we're not having this cultural subversion that is trying to obviously has racial bias against white people, like you were just saying.
Yeah.
White men, I should say, not necessarily white people, where we have things like the last Jarl of Norway, I think it was Norway, one of the Scandinavian
You mean
countries.
this one
It's
here?
going to yeah, right there. There she is. There she is. Yeah, Norwegian.
Come on.
Uh,
You know I
is
got
going
your
to be a
back, bro.
black
I got your
woman.
back.
A black woman.
It's a real
Explain
historical
how
news,
that
by the
makes
way.
sense.
And
How that's okay.
and you know the thing is, and I put these side by side for a reason. Ian McKellen is, he's right. They're actors. They're playing a
Yes.
character, and there's been plenty of race swapped or even gender swapped stuff that worked just fine,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But we're talking about historical
Catwoman.
character here, and this one is even a little more insulting because
Yeah.
beyond the fact that it's Haken was a famous real guy about 1,000 years ago. Um, there are actually queens without kings, ruler queens, who did rule Scandinavian
Yeah.
kingdoms.
And
Actual.
women who were
It's yeah,
warriors.
meaning
Like,
meaning they could have chose a female, a Scandinavian lady, and made her a queen, a jarl, because there are many of them historically. See, the thing
yeah,
is about us whites, we've always had female leadership.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, we have the majority of equality throughout the entire planet when it comes to men and women.
And it's
Right?
not even close.
No, it's not. It's not close at
Yeah.
all. So they could have easily chose a different character, made her some white Scandinavian lady, and it would have made perfect sense. No one would have even blinked at it, even
Yeah.
blinked. Now, keep in mind, shield maidens, a lot of them were noble women. They didn't
That's right.
actually charge into battle, but they were there for inspiration behind the lines.
And they
So,
would defend if it came
well,
to
if
it.
it came to it, sure.
Yeah. But
And
they
some
weren't
did
put on
die
the
on the
front
battlefield.
lines. They weren't put on the front lines for a
No, no,
very
of course,
important
because they were
reason.
noble
They're
ladies.
females.
Well, and that
Well,
too.
and they're females. Like,
Yeah,
if you're gonna pick between a male and a female for a physical melee fight, you're probably better off picking the male every time.
right,
Unless there's something physically wrong with him, he's still most likely stronger and has better endurance in that field than a female does.
right.
It's
And
just it's just the reality of nature, unfortunately, and it's just the way it is.
and you can find this across the entire Aryan world. If you
Yeah.
go over to the old Anatolia, Turkey today, I can't remember her name offhand, but there was a pretty famous queen, and the Persian army tried twice to take out those Aryans that were to the north of them, and they got their asses kicked twice. And she told them very simply, she was like, "Hey,
This one,
we don't want war. We're not interested in fighting with you. Just stay in your frickin' place and we'll stay in our
stay over
place.
there.
But if you come in up in here, we're gonna bleed you." And they did. So I mean
You
there's
start trouble, you're gonna get trouble.
right.
That's the
And of
way it is.
course the Romans ran into Boudica, of course,
I was
another
just gonna
famous,
say.
right?
That's what I was gonna say is Boudica, and she's everybody knows who Boudica is all over the world, and she effectively I mean think about it, she wasn't anybody significant
Well,
except she fought the Romans off.
she did, and she did it successfully because some
Yeah,
stupid, and I'm sure the Romans weren't happy about it, but some Roman official decided to slap her in the face and rape her daughters in front of her.
yeah.
That kind of piss a mom off, you think, right?
Trigger
Um,
some people, I think. I
yeah,
don't know. That might make you a little angry.
yeah. But I'm just saying that my point being is there are plenty of Scandinavian queens they could have chosen, but no. Not only did they race swap, which is stupid if you know anything about Scandinavians, how
Insulting.
stupid that
And it
is.
should be. White people should be insulted by that because
Yeah,
they're doing it to insult you. That's why
they
they're doing it. No one needs to pretend otherwise. It's designed to upset you.
right,
So let it upset you. It's
sure.
fine. That's
And,
fine.
and they gender swap. This is a real, actual, historical person. Now, when
Yes.
they did it with Achilles, when the BBC did it with Achilles, which in Homer's book, he explains exactly what Achilles looks like. He's a blonde,
That's right.
blue-eyed guy, right? Well, he's an
Yeah.
Aryan, right? But when they race swapped that, they were like, well, it's just fantasy character. Now, more than likely, Achilles was probably a real dude, but we don't have
Yeah.
evidence that he was or not. All right,
Based
how
on a real dude, at
it
least.
was based on a real dude. However,
Some warlord.
this is in the history books. We know who Jarl Håkon was. He was a
Yeah.
dickhead, is what he was, right? But we know
That's
who
right.
he was. So it's just intended to piss you off. And the first run of Vikings, this is like 100 years after Ivor the Boneless, I think. People kind of liked it. I got bored with it and left it out. But overall, people kind of liked it. This is getting a lot of pushback because there's so much of the message in this
Yeah.
that it's pissing people off. So
Netflix, of course there
of
is.
course it is.
Um,
And Ian,
I honestly think white people gotta stop trying to be so nice about this stuff because it's getting really creepy and dangerous. When they're willing to do that with historical figures for no other reason than to just try to upset you. Like, people talk about like the Hamilton play, right? That what's his name made, where it's all black cast playing the founding fathers, right?
which is dumb, but
Okay.
whatever, who
It
cares? It's
okay,
people seem to
fine.
like it. Yeah.
The difference is it's an all black cast doing it, one. And two, I don't believe he necessarily did it with the intention of insult. Because from what I've seen of it, and I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've seen a lot of it, they're pretty much just who they are. It's just obviously musical and silly. Uh, but they're pretty much basically the same characters. This is clearly done to get your attention.
Right.
Whether for good or for bad, it's designed as an outrage marketing technique.
It is. And keep in mind, I haven't seen Hamilton, so I can't speak on it. However, when you think about, say here in Japan, they love Western stuff. So when the Japanese do a story set in Rome, they're all Japanese,
Yeah,
but they're basically trying to portray Rome, right? And
right.
maybe Hamilton's doing the same. It's like I said, there's plenty of race swap or gender swap stuff that works fine.
There's a
But
way to do it where
yeah,
it's not clearly designed to insult you.
and
But
this
when it comes
is
from Netflix, for crying out loud, they're as far up the message's ass as you could be. They probably can see its lungs. They're so
right.
far up there.
But I can
It's designed to upset you.
I
That's what it's
can
designed to do.
guarantee you that there were no non blue-eyed, blonde-haired, or red-haired leaders anywhere throughout Scandinavian history. I can promise you this. Yes,
Oh,
guarantee. You take it to the bank. It's so stupid. It's so
look at that
stupid.
guy.
Well,
Look
here's
Scandinavian.
here's the real
Look at
dude,
him.
by the way. Look at
Go
him.
go back up there real quick. God, who's that guy? He's
He
not. He's
looks more Southern German, doesn't he?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a Scandinavian. Come on now.
Yeah. Well,
Like, we know what these people look like. There's plenty of actors out there who can do
dude,
it. What are we doing?
most people think Genghis Khan was a fat Chinaman, dude. I mean, come on.
Oh,
What do you want?
people are
But
dumb.
this is what he really looked like, by the way. Real dude, right? But and a bit of a dickhead.
Here's why it matters. Even regardless of them doing it intentionally to piss you off and to try and erase white culture, that's
She's
what they're
probably a
doing.
lesbian too. I guarantee you, she's a
The
lesbian.
reason it matters is that second part. When you do, there are certain things you can search on, like Google, right, where everybody gets their information from, and the whole internet runs off of Google's information database. The whole internet does, at least the upper internet, not the dark web. Uh, when you do certain searches on Google, what do you think comes up? Do you think when you search, black family, what comes up? A black family. You search a white family, and more often than not, you'll see mixing in the thing. When you
Yeah, well,
search
it's
for historical
intentional, right?
characters that they've done this to, you'll find the historical character that is, the recreation. Another example. Wow, that's actually a lot. That's impressive. Another example
It's not.
is
Oh, there's a white family right there. That's a white.
yeah. What's
This
the
is
look?
not
I mean,
Google, by the way. This is not Google.
correct. But another example is you can search for certain things a great example is the Disney remakes, right? The physical remakes they did, the live action. You can search on Google for like Aladdin. You know what comes up? The remake because it's newer.
Sure.
and because for some reason they've decided they need to remake all their old stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but that same thing applies to real life historical figures, because if you don't have context, if you don't apply the context to it, then people will and do get confused. And we know this, Chester, because as you've said, you live outside of America. Your wife has even said to you, if I believe you said, that it seems like America's like 30% black.
Or more.
Black people.
Or
Or
more.
more.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not even close to that. It's half of
Well, I
that.
mean, it's politic. I get that. But back to this thing right here. Keep in mind, the first run of Vikings, they did have Ragnar being enticed into a homosexual relationship, of course. Another historical person, by the way. But let me explain a little bit about Scandinavian thinking about sexuality. Um, Day to day, man, woman, wife, husband, end of conversation, right?
Yeah.
However, during certain festivals and celebrations, they did kind of have an orgy thing. They
Yeah.
did do
They
that,
had fun.
right? They did, and even wives with other men, and men with other women, right? Husbands with other women. That did happen, but only on certain festival occasions, particularly the Beltane. But Beltane is very much a sexual holiday anyway. We call it Valentine's Day now. But nevertheless, but outside of that, uh, they didn't do that. They were pretty singular, monogamous in their way, and their opinion on homosexuality was lethal.
Yes.
Lethal. Yeah. And trying to press homosexuality in the Scandinavian culture is, yeah, no, no, that's not no. No, but they really want to, and but just looking at the sitting of these two together, I bet you they're gonna lesbian these two up, dude. I bet you. I
Of
bet you.
course,
I
yeah.
bet you. But okay, whatever, whatever. But
I think that's right there's the problem largely is too many people just say whatever. I don't care what your race is. This stuff's wrong.
it
It'd
is
be
wrong.
wrong if I did it to an African king. It's wrong for them to do it to a Norwegian king. It's just wrong. There's
It
no
is
other. You
wrong.
don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain it. It's wrong. Period. Stop it.
Well, it's
Stop.
we know what it is. It's cultural appropriation. That's what it is.
Literally, it's
Literally.
actual cultural appropriation, and it's designed with how you'll hear these people on college campuses especially and all over now, like thanks to Twitter, talk about black erasure, right? And the historical, which did happen occasionally,
Oh,
where
sure.
they would erase black inventors and black artists and things and put up a white guy because they didn't want to offend people or whatever.
Mhm.
How is this any different? Anyone?
Yeah.
How is it any different?
Yeah. No.
Don't give me this nonsense about institutional power. I don't have institutional power. The people making this movie at Netflix or whatever it is have institutional power, and they're using their institutional power to erase
Right.
somebody who
And
could be my ancestor.
I'm pretty sure 1,000-year dead people don't have institutional power either. But
Exactly.
yeah, no, of course it's all nonsense. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's if you saw the opposite, they'd be screaming to the rafters. But
Screaming
of
to the
course, keep in
rafters.
mind this crap is still going on. It's still going on as they're hysterically jumping up and down about hysterically jumping up and down about Putin. Although I have to give Putin credit, he ended that goddamn pandemic quick, didn't he?
He sure did. He put COVID to bed.
He
Huh.
did. Yeah, so good on you, Mr. Putin, for that
Thanks,
anyway.
Vlad.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Vlad.
bud.
But let's move on here. Now go ahead and read the headline.
You set this up perfectly.
I
Good
know,
job.
I know.
Marvel's
Thank you.
upcoming quote, "My superhero is black," end quote, will tell the story of quote, "the industry on its path to modern black superhero," end quote. Claims America is systemically,
Systemically,
racist. Systemically, I'm going to tell you something. That's not really a word. That's made up. It's systematically.
yeah,
Systemically is impossible. We are not one entity. It
no,
cannot be systemic from us.
no, no, yeah. You can be systemically prone to sickle cell.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct. Yes,
but
I can be systemically prone to getting sunburn because I'm a pale son of a
that's
bitch.
right.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah,
I cannot be systemically racist because that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't come from my internal body system.
yeah, yeah. Now, Devilish Borden, you're 100% right. Henry Cavill is Malcolm X. Let's go.
Let's do it.
But let's do it. But anyway, this headline is very clickbaity. They do say some dumb things in this, but it also there's some good in this article actually, and I'll tell you why. Because what they've done here is my superhero is black. It is full of the modern nonsense rhetoric, of course. But what it is doing is showing that from day one in Marvel, they have had black characters and
That's
showing
right.
off all those black characters that have been around and saying, look how long it took us to get here. And it's like, well, from day one you had. And they are
What do you mean?
honest about that in this, though, because it's showing off Stan Lee's desire to show what, because Stan Lee always used to say, let's show what our world really looks like, right?
Yeah.
And that's a quote, from Stan Lee. So even though they're trying to make it and twist it into a bad thing, of course they are. They're all. I think they're shooting themselves in the face here, because what they've done in this is shown that actually since the '60s, Marvel has had lots of black characters.
Yeah.
I don't think they
Well,
really
because
understand. They're not making the point they think they are. You see?
this notion that there isn't been representation in comic books is it's retarded. Let's call it what it is. That's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Comic books, especially as a medium, you could say that about other mediums, maybe even like TV or whatever. Okay, maybe you have a better case, but not comic books. There's been every single race, color, and creed in comic books at one point or another over the last 50 years,
Yeah.
positively represented to the point of being superheroes that save the day.
Oh yeah. One of my favorites is sitting right in the middle. I always loved Black Panther.
He's great.
He's awesome, dude. And on the TV side, I mean, I grew up with tons of great black TV shows, man.
Yes. So did I. So did I. The only reason I say you could have a little bit more of an argument there is because there was the trope for a long time in TV of the black thug, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you had a thug, it was often a black guy, which, regardless of the real world statistics or not,
or an
I can
Arab.
get that. I can at least get that argument. I disagree with it. I think it's looking at it through a very myopic lens.
Very. Yeah.
But at least you have a case. You don't have one with comic books.
No.
You just don't.
You don't.
You simply don't.
Like I said, they're trying to make some point, but they've actually inadvertently made the other point.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. If you look and read the article and see what they did. But I just thought it was interesting. It's not worth a lot of conversation because it's stupid. There's always been black people, and they even admit it. So whatever. Moving on here.
Oh, this guy. I love him.
Yeah.
I love everything about him. He shames everybody trying to write right now. Brandon Sanderson opens crowdfunding campaign for new book series. Raises over $20 million in just 3 days.
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson just ended traditional publishing. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, he changed the entire game forever.
Yeah. And good on it for him, dude. I appreciate it. I mean, of course, if you don't know who he is, he's the guy that completed the Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, right?
Yes.
Is what he's mainly famous for. And then he went on and created his own series in the Mistborn novels.
Yes.
But I mean, this is nothing but positive. The dude went in, and now, of course, the fact that the Wheel of Time Amazon Prime show is pissed off all the people who read the Wheel of Time because it's ridiculously stupid. So everybody's like, "Well, this sucks." So he hit it exactly when he should, and it was like, "Oh yeah, new stuff from the dude." $20 million in 3 days, dude. Wow.
3 days, bro. $20 million. He wrote 5 new books. One he said he's going to make into a graphic novel. 4 actual full-length, probably about 400 pages novels, which is insane in 2 years. That is insane to be able to put out that. And he did a stream the other day where he read like the first 4 chapters of the first book that's coming. And it's fantastic.
Of course.
I'm like,
he's a good writer.
My God, Sanderson.
Yeah.
And here's the craziest part about him, right? This dude writes this many books while being a family man, and he's an avid video game player. I'm like, dude, where are you finding time? Where is the time to be this amazing at all of these things?
I know. It's
and he
awesome.
just does it.
Yeah.
He just
And
does it.
if you're interested in spoilers, each week of March he's going to reveal the names and secrets, some spoilers for each of these four books. So if you're interested in that,
Yeah.
but it's just this is a heartwarming thing. It's really cool the way he went about it, and he just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Of course, these are novels, but we have been supporting the indie comic book here for years. And we've seen people have some success and others have a little bit more, but nothing like
The
this.
worst part
Nothing
about this
like
for
this,
me
dude.
is this could have been one of our big name guys.
It
Maybe
could have
not
been.
20 million, but it could have been millions.
Yeah. Well,
And
Ethan's made a few million.
they they dropped the ball hard by being petty little whiny
Yeah,
little
that's
bitches
true.
on the internet, sniping at each other, stabbing each other in the back like they're in high school. You know what Brandon Sanderson is? He's a professional.
Yeah, he is. And
He just
that's
gets in there and he does the work and he's getting rewarded for it, and it's damn good to see.
yeah. And that's kind of the theme of what we were talking about earlier with Ukraine as well. And the reason why I titled this Night Owls versus or on Hysterical Hypocrisy, because the West is literally being run by morons, literally. I mean, just take a point of view from someone who's not part of the West, say Russia. How terrifying is it over the past couple of decades, especially the past decade, and seeing what's coming out of the West, seeing the nonsense, seeing Trump, who was a threat, an absolute threat to Russia, and then the idiots. I mean, how terrifying must it be to understand that their enemies are literally morons? It must be scary, dude. It must
Yeah,
be.
it has to be. It has to be. It's good to see though. I
It
really
is.
like
It's
Sanderson.
awesome, dude. It's awesome.
He
Yeah.
seems like a genuinely decent man and just a hard worker
Yeah. And he
and
looks like my friend Ben without his beard.
a spectacular writer. Like he shames me as I'm writing a book, and he shames everybody else how fast he can put out high quality material.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, 5 full-length stories
Yeah.
in 2 years that nobody even knew he was working on. Like that's just crazy.
And the
While he was
perfect
working on other
timing,
stuff.
dude. It's
While he
just
was working on other stuff too, like completing
yeah,
other stuff. Like
it's
just
awesome.
nuts, man.
And this is the most money I'm sure he's ever made in his whole life. So it's a great story. Congratulations, sir, and I hope to see more and more of it. Cut the middlemen out. You can print anything you want anywhere. It's very easy to get something printed, guys. Super easy. Cut the middlemen out. Just do it yourself and just go through the Kickstarter distribution. So awesome, awesome, awesome. Last.
Star Trek fan launches petition to have Alex Kurtzman's Star Trek designated as non-canon. I endorse this message.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, Kurtzman, just like Reeves, the guy who just did the Batman, these are both acolytes of Jar Jar Abrams, and
Yes.
they
The
always
difference with Reeves is he's actually
he is
talented.
talented. He
That's
is
the one.
talented,
That's
but
the word.
he is talented. But they are acolytes, dude. They worship
Yes.
at the altar of J.J. Abrams and his obsession with diversity and diverting expectations. And Kurtzman is unlike Reeves, is not talented. He never has
Yes.
been. He's never displayed any. I don't. I almost feel like he was sent in by Abrams because Abrams was mad that people didn't receive his Star Trek the way he wanted, and he sent this idiot in to sabotage it because he knows he sucks. You think Abrams is beyond that?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. Um, Here's one of the best things about Reeves so far that of the stuff of his I've seen, especially this new movie, is I think Reeves has figured it out that everybody's really tired of having their expectations subverted. So he knew that, right?
Right.
So he did do it. You know what he did? He just gave us a Batman movie. Oh, holy shit! I know! It was shocking because I was waiting. I'm sitting in that theater, I'm like, when's this boot gonna drop? Because something's gonna happen, and we're gonna get subverted somehow. And no, it's just a Batman movie.
Yeah.
and
Well, it
I
sounds
love it.
like it's a solid movie. It does have a little bit of subversion in it, but in general, it just sounds like it's really, really good. I
I
can't
don't,
wait to see it.
and I'm trying to think. I don't think there really is. I think the most subversive thing you could say is Catwoman is, I guess, bisexual. But the way in the movie that it plays out is you could easily say that she's not, and she just talks that way
Why?
about people she cares about.
Who cares anyway? What does that
Exactly.
have
I
to
don't
do
give
with
a
anything? Who
shit because
gives a
it has
shit?
nothing to do
Um,
overall with the story.
but it does
But
sound pretty good, though.
here I'll give you an example of why people think she's bisexual, why they're
Well,
saying
she
she is.
said so. She
One of the
implied it.
characters, basically, she's almost like a MacGuffin. One of the characters they're trying to find, she yells out, "Baby, where are you?" However,
Oh,
later on in the movie, she calls Batman baby when she doesn't even really know him. So it kind of came off to me like, at first I was like, "Oh, are they gay? Like, what's going on?" But it kind of came more off to me like that's just how she talks
yeah,
to
no, it
people.
doesn't matter. She just said that for virtue signaling points after the
Yeah,
fact. The actress said it, right? But in general, for those of you who are asking questions, I haven't seen it myself, but it sounds like it's certainly worth a watch.
it is.
In the third act, there's definitely some white man bad and the message nonsense, but in general, it sounds like it's a very solid movie. So and I'm going to watch it myself, right? Although my friend Ben is in here, Corlac. Yes, sir, you were summoned. Did you watch The King's Man, Ben, and not tell me how bad it was, sir?
He said he liked it. Somebody said they liked it. I remember that recently.
No,
Um,
I think it was Ben who said that he liked the Peacemaker, which I have to chew on the fat a little
Excuse
bit of
me.
that too, because there the only for the Peacemaker, John Cena is way better actor than I had any imagination that he could be, and it's because he has a director and knows what he's doing is why. So that shocked me, one. But that is absolute nonsense trash. The only thing good about it is Eagly, and Eagly forever, forever. I love Eagly. Eagly was badass, but it's just so dumb, dude. It's so stupid. It is the message. But I was impressed by John Cena though. I really was. But no one, everyone, no one is likable. They're all despicable. Everybody's despicable. Who am I supposed to be? I rooted for
well,
Eagly.
it has a director that's despicable too.
Well,
So
that's
hey,
fair. And oh, he's so perverted. It comes out so strongly in this. He's so perverse.
well, he's a
James Gunn.
pedophile.
But
Oh, I
there's
mean, he's accused of being a pedophile.
yeah. But I'm just saying, there's no one to root for other than the frickin' Eagle, who is badass. But I mean, I maybe a little bit Amanda Waller's daughter is a little bit likable, but she's also kind of dumb. But maybe she gets a little bit of plus. But everyone else is just deplorable, dude. They're horrible, horrible
Yeah,
people, all of them. And I guess that's the point, I suppose. But I mean, you gotta have some kind of shining light somewhere, don't you? I
you would
don't know.
think.
I don't know, but I would not recommend the Peacemaker. However, like I said, John Cena actually pretty good, dude. The acting in it overall is not horrible. There are some funny moments, but it's much more like the Suicide Squad movie. It's nowhere near as fun as the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are. It's more in that vein. It's bloody and dark humor and perverted and twisted nonsense. I don't know. I just think he should have made one of the characters super likable, right? So that you had someone to root for because you really don't. Like I said, Amanda Waller's daughter is the closest to it, but even then, she's despicable too. The things she does and the stupid things that they do with her character. But I don't know. I can't recommend the Peacemaker. Have you seen it?
I have no. I
Yeah,
watched the intro little song and dance they do, and I'm out. I said, "Nah, I'm good. Thanks."
it is.
That
That
was
was
enough for
weird.
me.
That was
I'm like
weird.
that
Yeah.
though. I was the same way with Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise. That stupid opening song just killed it for me. I was like,
Yeah,
nah,
that's
that's not
fair.
Star Trek. I'm good. And Firefly, I hated the opening song for that too. Nope. See ya.
So.
Bye. I even loved Firefly after I got past that and watched it, but at first impressions matter, man. That music that you hit people with, that matters. And
It
if people
does.
get turned off by it, they're off. They're turned off by it.
That's true. It is true. But yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff I've seen recently. I don't really care for very much at all.
Here's what I'll
Unfortunately.
say. Here's the best thing about now. In the last 3 months, we've had two fantastic superhero movies come out. Absolutely near masterpieces
Spider-Man and
of
Batman.
their,
Yeah.
especially of their character, right? Spider-Man and Batman, probably my two favorite of like the top tier guys. And I love it. I love everything about it, and I'm so glad to have had it
Right.
because it's been a while since we've had really. I'm talking not just good superhero movies, good movies about superheroes. The MCU makes pretty good superhero movies, but a few of them are good movies that happen to be about superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
much prefer
That's true.
that
That's true.
personally.
Yeah.
I much prefer the film itself to be
Right.
really good or fantastic,
Well.
and then it be about superheroes than just it's a superhero movie that just happens to be decent.
Well, speaking on that, you know how we were told wondering what Disney was going to do with Fox? Well, we
Yep.
now know. Because they're basically dropping all their Fox movies, and it looks like they're kind of going hard R on a lot of shit, and they're dropping it on Hulu. That's what they're doing with Fox. They're dropping
Interesting.
because Disney owns Hulu too, right? Not the Disney Plus. They're going to drop it on Hulu, so that's interesting. Then I'm sure we'll have conversations about that coming up. There was another thing that came out here recently, just a few days ago on Netflix. The Guardians of Justice or something like that. It's like this superhero thing. It's like some college movie project level. It's like Robot Chicken is what I
Yeah.
caught a thought, and I was like, if you can bear it. Um, but of course, in the end, what do you think the whole thing about? You have a Superman's basically dead. Superman commits suicide, kills himself. Basically, is
Oh
what's
boy.
going on, right? And the whole thing is figuring out why did he kill himself? Did someone force him to kill himself? Was what's going on, right? The whole seven episode series was all about this. In the end, what do you think it was all about? Can you possibly guess in this modern freaking world?
Something about white people being bad.
Well, of course, there's a little bit of that, but mainly gays,
Ah,
the
of course.
gays. Yeah, because
Which
Superman,
again, nobody cares. Like the vast majority of people don't get hung up on the gays,
no.
but the constant like pro gay propaganda is weird.
Well,
It's really
it is
weird.
weird, and the whole thing about it is that he's so upset that he can't be honest and truthful with the word about his gayness, that he decides he just can't take it and he kills himself.
Oh, it's so
It's
stupid.
so
That's so
stupid.
stupid.
I mean, because literally, I mean, being gay hasn't been cool and controversial since the '60s, dude.
Well, yeah, the ones back then were cool and controversial.
Yeah,
A
I'm
lot of
just
them now are
saying, I don't
lame.
understand
They're
why they
they're like
keep
librarians and shit. Like
pounding
that's
on
not
this shit.
interesting.
It's so dumb. And like I said, it's not that thing. The robot chicken style is certainly not for everybody, but it could have been a fun, cool little thing. And you could have thrown a gay character in there. Sure, why not? It's your creation. Do whatever you want. But the whole thing is ultimately about the gay. And Diamond Dallas Page plays Batman. Basically, well, they don't call it, they call it the Iron Falcon. And you know what they did to Diamond? Do you know the sacrilege they did to Diamond? They
Oh
made him
no.
gay too.
Of course. I will say that the Iron Falcon's a pretty cool name. That should be a villain. Iron
Yeah,
Falcon.
yeah. But I
That's a
mean,
good
it
name.
could have been a fun little quirky robot chicken-esque thing. But in the end, it just fails because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It is all silly anyway, but it's just why? Why? What's your point, dude? What's your point? I mean, it could have just been some goofy, artsy approach to a superhero thing. It could have been a fun little thing, but no, of course they screwed it up. And I see Corlac is disavowing me from the chat. I can feel it. So thank you, Ben. Thank
I would say, going back to the Batman,
you.
and we'll probably talk more about it tomorrow. But going back to it, the thing that surprised me the most is how good Zoe Kravitz is as Catwoman. She killed it. She absolutely kills it as Catwoman. She's she just did the job, right? She's charming. She's witty.
She's
She
slinky.
holds her own. She's very skinny, yes. But she holds her own, intellectually and in the the banter or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And I was very impressed because she's never been, in my opinion, a great actress. But this was by far her best performance I've ever seen. And Pattinson did exactly what I thought he did. He
Yeah.
owned it.
Well, I
And he
mean,
was Batman, by the way. He was very rarely Bruce Wayne because he's almost always in the mask. He's almost always in his
right.
suit. Which this is when I say this is probably the best Batman movie ever made is because of that. Because it's
Yeah.
actually a Batman movie.
Yeah, he's a detective, it sounds like. Yeah, but I
Yes.
mean, Reeves is a talented director. He's a tool, but he's a talented director. So I'm not surprised by that. The only real, I mean, there's complaint about third act dropping into the message, but the actual main
I don't
complaint I've
get
heard,
that.
yeah, well, I
I
don't
don't
know, I
I
haven't
don't
seen
get
it,
that.
but the real main complaint I've heard from people is that is mainly about Pattinson. Everything else, everyone seems to adore. It's Pattinson is just gloomy Gus the entire freaking movie. There's no tonal shift at all in his
No, that's wrong.
character.
That's
Yeah.
incorrect.
See, I don't
That's completely. In fact, that's
know.
literally the plot point of the third act. That's completely wrong. So this is again. I said it before. People just don't like Pattinson, and they will find a reason to make him the enemy of this film because he is from beginning to end. He's great. He gets the character. He's the best Batman we've ever had on screen as
Cool.
far as the way he behaves. He's actually a detective. He's smart. He figures things out. And when he doesn't figure things out, they make a plot point of it, and the Riddler mocks him for it until he figures it out. Stuff like that. It's his voice doesn't sound like he just swallowed razor blades like Christian Bale.
Wow, that was
Uh,
ridiculous. Let's be fair. Yeah.
I just don't get it. I don't have this weird animus that a lot of people have towards Pattinson over, and
No.
it's really I think just comes from Twilight because that was such a ridiculous
Nah,
nonsense.
he's proven himself since then, though, dude. He has.
But there is a lot of people who have a bias against this guy because he looks like, what you just said. He looks kind of emo or whatever, like dour and
Yeah.
things. And okay, fine, you don't have to like him. I'm not saying anybody does, but people need to be cognizant of their bias. Like my wife
Right.
doesn't want to see it because she's open about her bias. She doesn't like him. She doesn't want to see it. Okay, that's fine, but don't pretend that it's not that
Right.
if it is that. You know what I
Well,
mean? And I think there's a lot of that. And I've heard people say the two complaints I've heard is it's very dark, meaning the lighting's real dark and it's gloomy. Okay, it's
that's
got
okay. It's Batman.
it makes sense. And the other one is it's very long, and it is long,
Oh,
but it really didn't bother me. Like I didn't think it was too long. I thought it ended right where it should have. The story was told, and there's a moral to the story. He learns the moral to his story, which this is two superhero movies in a row now that have a point. They have a moral to their story. They're not just things aren't just happening and somebody's
yep.
got to go solve it. There's a reason things are happening, and there's a lesson that the hero needs to learn. He goes on a hero's journey. Thank you. That's the whole damn point of this.
Right.
If there's no
Let
point to the story, then all we're doing is we just got flashy things on the screen that we're looking at like we're retards. All right? They're
let
jingling the keys.
let me ask a question though.
Yeah,
Will I like it?
I think so. I think there will be two parts that you dislike.
Mhm.
I'm not going to tell you what they are,
Mhm.
but I think there'll be two parts that you dislike, and it's for reasons you've stated previously, but they're part of his character development. So I think you'll forgive them because I think you'll like it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to have a
Pattinson,
good Batman movie.
and the thing is the reason why it's a good Batman movie is because it's a Batman movie. Meaning he's Batman. He's not Bruce Wayne. He's not going on some journey to become Batman. He just is Batman. And he learns what that means. That's why it's called The Batman. His journey is to learn what that means. It's not just to be the vigilante, it's to learn what that means.
No, that's
And
cool.
I appreciate that. And another thing, this is a spoiler. I'm not going to say what it is, but there is a trope in every Batman movie that the villains do. In this one, they do not. And I appreciate that.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
if you see it, you'll know what I mean.
Well, I mean, me
Oh, and
personally,
Colin Farrell as Penguin is the best casting choice I've ever seen in my life. He is
he looks
fantastic.
good on the
He's a
trailer. Yeah.
he's a scumbag and he's hilarious. He's the only real levity is him being funny. But he's not like making jokes. He's such a scumbag. Like and it's so good. It's
Yeah.
that's so good. His Penguin is perfect. Wow, he nailed it.
That's cool. I mean, because mostly my favorite Batman are the animated stuff. as
Yeah.
far as this media. Because Ben Affleck as Batman, nah, he doesn't really get the character. He looked good. I think he was the best looking
Yeah.
Batman. Christian Bale was fine as Bruce Wayne, but he was shit Batman. Shit, absolute shit.
Yes.
So I haven't actually seen a live action good Batman in my opinion.
Um, I honestly think he's probably the best one, besides what Val Kilmer's potential was. If
Yeah,
Val
well,
had been in a good film and not been Val Kilmer, where he's such a prick,
yeah,
he
that's
would
the
have been the
problem
best
with
one.
Val Kilmer. He's a prick.
But
Uh,
Pattinson, he clearly understands Batman, and it comes through. He went and did his homework. You know how you're big on homework? He did his homework because I've
well,
seen interviews now where he said he had no idea Batman was considered the world's greatest detective. Like that's one of his names. He didn't know that, but now he does because he went
yeah,
and did his
no, that's
homework.
cool. Speaking of Val Kilmer and his Batman, do you know that originally they had him scheduled to play Johnny Mnemonic, and he left that to go do Batman?
I mean, that's probably the right choice,
It was
but ooh,
definitely the right choice. Yes, but imagine Johnny Mnemonic with Kilmer instead of Keanu,
with an actor instead of a
an
guy who just
actual.
looks good on screen, yeah,
Yes, yes, yeah. Because honestly, when you put Keanu in where he doesn't talk much and he's just doing action, he's great at that. He's
it's
good at that.
fantastic. He might be the best at it. In
He
fact,
might
he's
be.
got
He's a
that.
really good
He's
actor.
got it.
He
Yeah,
does. But Johnny Mnemonic needed an actual actor, and that's really one of the
yeah.
main reasons it failed, I think. Because I mean, you got freaking Dolph Lundgren playing a cyborg psycho priest. I mean, come on, dude.
But I do
Come.
recommend it. I think you will like it. I don't think you'll like it as much as I do, but I think you will like it, and I think you'll appreciate it. And it'll be. I think for most people, what it is it's yet again Batman delivers. The Batman franchise on film has more often than not delivered, and this will continue that trend. For whatever reason, that's the one superhero they seem to usually get right, or at least right enough, right?
Yeah,
Um, and Superman's been a cluster for a long time,
yeah.
but Batman they consistently they nail it
Well, he's much
one way or the other.
easier than
Yes,
Superman. It's
well,
way
because he's human.
easier. Well, I mean, he's
Um,
also the dark vigilante,
yes, the Dark
smart,
Knight.
the Dark Knight. It's
And I will say
easy.
this about this movie: it's not an origin story,
Good.
insofar as we don't see him become put on the cowl and all that we've seen in every other Batman movie. But it is an origin story. And that's all I'll say,
All right, cool.
because Reeves is full of shit because he's been giving interviews saying he wasn't setting up other movies. You're lying out your ass.
Of
You were
course.
absolutely setting up other movies,
Of course he was.
and this movie does that repeatedly, including for him. And from what I understand, it's making good money.
It
And
is.
Reeves does want to make more. He's already got plans for the next one, so let him do it. I don't see any reason not to.
Well,
Uh,
a lot of times what you see with these kind of directors, especially Bad Robot, is their first movie is pretty normal, and then every successful after that becomes more and more and
Goes
more
off the
the
rails. Yeah,
message.
yeah.
But anyway, guys, I got to run and get to work. Thanks for the offer, Ben, but I got to run. But keep in mind tomorrow we are doing comic books, and it's an hour later, so maybe we will get Ben to jump on. He is a comic book aficionado, Thundero.
Let's do it.
So we're going to be talking about that, and I'll try to stick to comics and not get into the nonsense going over in Europe. I can't wait.
Tomorrow, I'm
Yeah,
going to give a full spoiler-free review of the Batman because I think it's an important movie in
sure.
the comic book space, especially, and I honestly do think it's up there. I need to watch it again, but it's up there. It's
Yeah.
on the list.
Well,
Best of all time.
you could put up a little presentation and you could share your screen.
Ah, now you're asking a lot. No,
Yeah, I do
no,
it
I
all the
might.
time.
I might. I just don't want to give away spoilers because it just came out, so I want to avoid spoilers as much as possible. And
Sure,
any too
sure.
many pictures might be a spoiler,
Ah, fair
so
enough.
I'm going to try and keep it away from that.
Fair enough.
Um, but yeah, I will because, like I said, I've been doing the thing where I do a guess a review, and tomorrow I'll give the actual answer on that.
Sweet. Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, thank you all very much. We will check you out tomorrow where we'll be talking about comics and Batman, it sounds like. So I appreciate you guys coming in and having a listen to us. And, stay safe out there. The world is become stupid.
Be good.
Yeah, be good. Yep. Later.